I will call to order this meeting of the Oversight Committee. It is 8:31 a.m. Mr. Taylor, please proceed with the roll call. Here.
Here. Cummings.
Counted for.
Here. Here. Michelle? Yeah. Vice here. Present.
Thank you. I will note that Dr. Cummings is joining us via video. Thank you. Members, you have the draft minutes from the February 18th Oversight Committee meeting in your agenda packet behind tab 1. Are there any corrections to the minutes as circulated? Hearing none, the chair will entertain a motion to approve the minutes of the February 18th Oversight Committee meeting.
So moved.
All in favor vote aye.
Aye.
Any
Aye.
opposed? Motion carried. Our next agenda item is public comment. Texans created CPRIT. Opening our meetings with public comment underscores this board's commitment to transparency and accountability. Mr. Ellis, has CPRIT received any requests to provide public comment?
No, Madam Chair.
Thank you. The chair now recognizes Ms. Doyle to introduce Dr. Leslie Sloan, who will give a grantee presentation.
Good morning, Oversight Committee members. I am thrilled to introduce one of our grantees. She is the CEO of Omni Nano, which is a company that CPRIT approved for an award a couple of years ago. Dr. Sloan is a chemist by training, but the very interesting thing for me about Dr. Sloan, and a great story for CPRIT, is this is actually her third CPRIT company that she has been associated with. So she's also worked with Aglia and with Panther Therapeutics. So she is doing exactly what we hope in terms of the development of the life science ecosystem in Texas. We are trying to build this experienced group of leaders that can help develop these great ideas that are coming out of Texas labs and moving them further in the pathway. So I think you're really going to enjoy her presentation, and I will turn it over to her.
Hi, nice to see you guys and be here today. As Kristen said, this is my third trip through a company with CPRIT, and it's done amazing things for molecules that we're developing. And the last one that we managed to get across the finish line was at Aglia, where we developed a rare disease asset that's now marketed in both the US and Europe. So it's really fun to be part of building this. I grew up in a small town in Oklahoma, and when I first came out and went to graduate school, I went to the Northeast, and then I wasn't able to come back home because there wasn't an industry that actually supported my degree in chemistry and my aspirations to do pharmaceutical development. So it's really fun to be part of the building in Houston and Austin and Dallas of sort of this ecosystem that allows those of us that grew up in this area to stay in this area and do what we love. So thank you for the opportunity. I'm going to talk today about sort of two parts. The first part is just an overview of Omni Nano and our program, and the second part is more specific about our seed grant and the progress that we've made against it in case, there's interest. Feel free to ask any questions before or after. Do I need to move closer to the mic? Okay, there we go. Can you hear me now? All right. So at Omni Nano, we think that one of the biggest unmet needs in solid tumors is the ability of drugs to access and maintain effective concentrations in the solid tumor. This is especially clear in pancreatic cancer, where the overall effectiveness of drugs has not been very good. It's not necessarily because we don't have effective drugs, but more because they underperform in this setting. So that means that the median overall survival for advanced pancreatic cancer remains at about a year. And the fundamental issue is that the dense tumor structure limits drug and immune access and drives this treatment failure. So this is because about 85% of the tumor is made up of bulk that is a dense stroma, or like a fortress, if you think about it, that blocks drug penetration, suppresses immune engagement, and collapses the functional vasculature, makes it difficult for blood flow to get to the tumors. And that tumor structure limits chemotherapy, immunotherapy, targeted therapy. They all fall short in the inability to have adequate access in the tumors. So OMP-001 was developed to attack this problem, and it does so by a dual approach. It's a nanoparticle, a polymeric micelle that encapsulates two drugs. They're complementary drugs, and it preferentially delivers them to solid tumors. Cyclopamine creates tumor access by modulating the stroma, and paclitaxel actually kills cancer cells directly, and these two work together in a coordinated fashion. And by that coordination, we're able to get high sustained concentrations of both drugs in the tumor. And this effectively changes the physical and biological characteristics of those tumors and makes them go from inaccessible to accessible to both drugs and the immune system. Yes. So it penetrates initially because it's very small, and then it releases two drugs, one of which modulates the genetic pathway that causes the creation of this stroma. So it shuts down that, and it shuts down the creation of new tumor cells. And the other one attacks the other end where the tumor cells already exist or are growing. So we're trying to hit it from both angles. And in addition, that access that it creates also allows infiltration of immune cells, so CD8 T cells and things, so that the body itself can tackle the tumor as well. So we're kind of coming at it from two approaches within the drug and one approach from the body. So this is, in fact, our differentiation, right? So if you think about effective pancreatic cancer drugs, they have to do two things. They have to have good access to the tumor itself, to the cells, the cancer cells within that tumor stroma, and you would prefer them to be selective for the tumor exposure so that you get less side effects, right? So one of the downsides of chemotherapy, even when it works, is that it's toxic, and toxic things are not fun to have to take. So if you look across the axes here, the vertical axis is about access in the tumor, and the horizontal axis is really about that preferential tumor versus systemic exposure. And you can see that most drugs on the market for pancreatic cancer fall short on at least one of those. But OMP-001 was literally designed to tackle both, so both of those constraints at the same time. And so we get good tumor access and high tumor specific exposure, which we believe is key to actually driving durable responses in pancreatic cancer. Now, this is, we've tested this drug in multiple preclinical studies across 4 different model types. I'm showing here late stage tumors that were allowed to grow until they were palpable and large before the tumors were started, and 2 different clinically relevant models. And you can see that by looking at the red lines here, this is a Kaplan-Meier curve, so it shows the death rate of animals that are on this study. And you can see that the survival is extended quite extensively in both of these studies, and both for OMP-001. You can also see, if you compare the purple line to the red line on the graph on the left, that this is not true when you just administer the 2 drugs. So it really is important that the architecture deliver both drugs simultaneously in the same exposure window in the tumor. And this is what drives that exposure plus accumulation that we were talking about earlier. This slide actually quantitates that preferential exposure that we're talking about. You can see about 150-fold higher tumor versus blood concentrations here in a genetically engineered mouse model. And on the right is an orthotopic syngeneic model where we put our drug head-to-head against Abraxane, which is the best-in-class formulation for paclitaxel that's on the market today. And you can see we see 10-fold higher tumor concentrations of paclitaxel for OMP-001 versus Abraxane. So this means you get more in the tumor, less in the system, and a better opportunity for a better therapeutic window. No problem.
Is that driven by the genes of the cancer, or is that driven by kind of like the response of the body to the cancer?
It's actually driven by both. And there's a crosstalk between cancer cells and what's called cancer-associated fibroblasts. Those cancer cells talk to the fibroblast, which turns on the extracellular matrix and says, no, protect yourself. And it creates this really, can't talk without my hands, this really dense stroma that responds by protecting those cells. And then what happens is that as it restricts the blood flow and it causes the hypoxia or the lack of oxygen in there, eventually those cancer cells are like, I got to get out of here or I'm going to die, right? And then they metastasize and spread.
Gotcha.
So what we're trying to do is loosen that stroma, but not ablate it. So there've been experiments where if you just annihilate the stroma, right? All those cancer cells are like, we're free, right? They go everywhere and they create really aggressive metastatic disease. So what we're trying to do is modify it enough that things get in, but not undermine that basement membrane, if you will, of collagen that keeps it contained.
Thank you.
Importantly, the 10x exposure that we drive in the tumor is not true across the other normal tissues. So you see 10x in the tumor concentration versus Abraxane here, but you can see that in the blood, the liver, and the spleen, you have the same or lower concentrations that you see with Abraxane. So this, again, helps us think about that therapeutic index where we're getting more drug where we want it and less drug where we don't. These types of approaches for drug delivery, improving the delivery of drugs, have been commercially viable in the past with some billion-dollar deals that have happened. And importantly, things like Onivide and Abraxane are examples where just improving the ability of drugs to get where you want them to go has a commercial and clinical benefit. Even without changing the underlying drug. In our case, we're doing more than that. So we're not just delivering the drugs, we're delivering the drugs when they're synergistic in their actions, which allows both the access and the exposure. We're starting with advanced pancreatic cancer due to unmet medical need, and also because it's unfortunately the fastest way to get a clinical outcome in this type of mechanistic approach. Then we also have the ability, because we're mutation agnostic, so we have the ability to think about other stromal bound tumors or other indications where paclitaxel is used, because as I mentioned, we get a much higher uptake in the tumors of paclitaxel than the current best case. And so if you think about just advanced PDAC, you're talking in the range of about $1 billion market. And if you think about all of these other indications, even in just the segments that are most applicable to these drug combinations, you end up in about an $8 to $10 billion market. One of the risks of oncology early development is often development complexity, right? So it's not easy to develop drugs. It's difficult to get them from the research through to IND and into the clinic. So we built a team around people who have experience doing that hands-on. So with experience taking research assets through IND enabling and all the way through the clinic and into the market. So that allows us, with expertise in nanomedicine, CMC, leadership and development, and regulatory, and experience with oncology programs and successful IND, successful clinical development and approvals, we can run in parallel our CMC toxicology and clinical preparation. All right, so now I want to switch, unless there's any other questions on the overview, I'll switch to more specifics about the science that we've been doing with the money that CPRIT has granted us in our seed grant. I did this sort of by stepwise by goals, so bear with me a little. I'll try not to geek out too much on you.
Hey, Doc, before you continue,
yes.
Your medical advisor is from where?
UT Southwest.
Thank you.
So we have one at UT Southwest, and we have a recent one that we've added that's actually at City of Hope as well. He's not on the slides, so. All right, so goal number one for our grant is all about optimizing the dose and understanding the best dosing and some of the concentrations and different aspects of our nanomedicine. We did this by looking at both dose level and dose schedule. I didn't put all of them on here because there were 3 dose levels and 3 different dosing schedules. And so there was a lot of lines, and I thought probably best not to try to show you all of them all at once. But what I am showing you is the minimally efficacious dose and in this case, in the screening, the best dose that we saw, and one intermediate, and the intermediate's on for reasons, and I'll explain in a second. So what you see is that if you don't treat these mice, they live about 19 and a half days past inoculation. So remember, or past, not inoculation, past treatment start. Remember, these tumors are quite large when we start, so they're not in good shape. And if you dose them, you can see a statistically significant survival at 2.5 mg per kg dosed 3 times a week. So that's quite a bit lower than the 5 and 7.5 that we've done, and we were happy to see that shift. It's not as big a shift as we want to see, but we were happy to see that we could find a lower dose level. That helps us when we think about our clinical dosing, right? It helps us know what that window is for efficacy. And then we looked at 5 and 7.5, and then and you can see that the 5 adds about 10 days to that, or about 20 days to that, and 2.5 added about 10 days to the survival. Now, 7.5 is interesting on here, right? We didn't expect to see less survival at a higher dose, and that made us actually step back a bit and start looking carefully at the drugs that we were using. And we found that we had inadvertently carried a in-process impurity into our final product. And that in-process impurity was confounding the data. So we went back a step, we figured out how to remove that impurity from the polymer step before you got to drug product, which was much easier to do there and to quantitate it there than it is in the final product. And then we redid this with a confirmatory study. So the confirmatory study is here, where we looked at control plus standard of care, which in this case we used gemcitabine plus Abraxane, and ONP-001 at 2 dose levels, 5 mg per kg per dose and 5 mg per kg per dose, that then escalated to 7.5 mg per kg per dose. You can also see on here in the blue line that we have a twice weekly dosing, which also shifts the survival, but is not as significant as the 3 times weekly. We're happy to see that the 5 mg per kg per dose in the confirmation study shows the same shift in survival that's statistically significant. And we're also really excited to see the optimized dosing pattern that we looked at that actually significantly does. So you think 5 mg per kg gets you almost twice the survival, and then the 5 mg per kg escalated to 7.5 got us almost 3 times the survival of the standard of care. So now we've established a minimally efficacious dose, a standard dose that we can use in combinations, because the 5 mg per kg is a good, strong dose that shows good efficacy, and an optimized dosing paradigm. My clicker doesn't always want to work. Maybe. Somebody want to click the slide? Thank you. No, other way. Oh yeah, that's right. You're right. You're good. So goal 2 is about non-GLP toxicology, systemic tox. We've done a screening study, but we are currently doing this study. It was initiated in May. Results are expected next month. And we're looking at 4 different dose levels at 5, 10, 15, and 20. This is a acute tox study, so you'll give them a bolus dose. 3 days later, you'll look to see what kind of systemic impact you're having. Then this will be followed by a repeat dose study. Just for reference, the 5 mg per kg is about 2x the efficacious dose, because you allosterically scale from rats to mice, and the 20 mg is about 10 times. So we're looking at a range of 2 to 10x of the efficacious dose.
In the previous studies, the tumors were inside the mouse, or you had already taken them out and were treating them on a...
No, they were live. This is an
Okay.
orthotopic syngeneic mouse model, and that just means big fancy words for the mouse has an intact immune
Yes.
system. You put the drug or the tumors inside the pancreas and let it grow, and we let it grow until it was quite large, and then we started the treatment.
Nice.
There we go. I think that's the right one. Yeah, it seems to be working again. Thank you. So then just an overview about synthesis. Now, this is a place that we've had a little struggle. We're happy to say that we finally made it through the struggle. This is a schematic that shows kind of how our drug is made and all the components. We have 2 polymers, an anionic polymer that we nicknamed polymer 4, and a cationic polymer. They're put together in a 50:1 ratio with 2 drugs, cyclopamine and paclitaxel, which spontaneously, if you do it right, in the right order, with the right solvents, with the right stirring, you get a drug substance which looks a bit like this one, where you have a micelle that encapsulates both drugs. They're spherical, and they're about 40 nanometers plus 40 plus or minus 10 nanometers. I'll tell you a bit more about each one of those steps, but this is sort of the overall schematic. This is all about the polymers. This is where we had some difficulty in the beginning. These polymers were made in MD Anderson Cancer Center's labs, in the lab of one of our co-founders. We didn't really have difficulty doing so. We transferred to a CDMO, and sometimes it worked really well and sometimes it didn't, and it took a bit of work to try to figure out what was going on. It's a 3-step synthesis to make the anionic polymer. The first step is all about the subunits for A and B. The second step is the conditions determine the number of subunits for C. And then step number 4 caps the hydroxyl with a succinic acid that allows you to do some interactions with CPA. Yes.
Was there any AI involved that would help you, sort of the drug manufacturer, decide how to put this in some ratio or something in this, or is that just old-fashioned chemistry?
Was old-fashioned chemistry. This was done 5 years ago, right?
Okay.
And then we've done some modifications on it and some optimizations on it, but the first publications were published in 2018. So it was done back a ways.
But since then, have you used AI to enhance this type of research?
We've not used AI on this one. And the reason, this sounds bad, but the reason is because it's very straightforward chemistry. So really it was
Sure.
about adhering to the specifics of the reaction carefully.
Okay.
Now we may use AI when we're doing process improvements, right? So we're now doing a scale up with a CDMO, and they will use AI to think about, they'll do AI for efficiencies, right? So we want to drive this to be as inexpensive as possible.
Right.
So we'll use that for that efficient design of experiment. Well, we used to do design of experiments, but now you can do
Yes.
them in AI and it does the design
Right.
experiment for you. So
Good.
so anyhow, what we've been able to do just recently, well, in the last 5 months or so, is to go from 100 milligram scale to 100 gram scale with repetitive batches back to back that are consecutive, that give us the right subunits every time with the right purity that we want of every one of these polymers. So we're now sitting at a point where we can do our tech transfer to our CDMO and we can move forward. We have actually done a competitive process to bid out this work to another CDMO because to be honest, it was quite painful to get here and we'd like to make it a little less painful. Bill doesn't like me.
Are there CDMOs in Texas, or do they have to?
The CDMO is in Texas, and we've worked with them for about 3 years. The CDMO we chose is actually in New Jersey because there are not currently, there's one being built. There's not currently nanomedicine CDMOs that are specific to nanoparticles, and we were looking for that specificity because it turns out that the biology is driven by the specifics, not surprisingly, and those specifics you can get if you're familiar with how you mix and how you do things and that you do them in a particular way. But when you have a CDMO that does everything from small molecules to biologics to peptides to whatever, they're not as familiar with sort of those points that are really important. So we've selected one that actually that's their business is nanomedicine.
Thank you.
We have 2 active pharmaceutical ingredients, paclitaxel, which we can buy at API grade. We have an agreement with Pfizer Biotech, and we've been granted access to their active drug master file, which just means we don't have to do all that work for the IND. We can just reference the work they've already done. The second active pharmaceutical ingredient is cyclopamine. It's a natural product. This one stumped us for a little bit, and fortunately, we finally figured out the path. So you can buy this as a research grade material. It comes from a plant, so it gets extracted and it's actually quite pure. It's just not GMP grade, and so you can't put it in the clinic unless it's GMP grade. And initially, we had a single conversation with a single CDMO here in Texas, and their proposal was to do a total synthesis. I don't know how many of you guys might have chemistry in your background, but total syntheses are always dangerous, and especially of natural products, because there's about 50 steps, and the plants do them really efficiently, and chemistry on the bench does not. The other alternative was to do a crystallization and then, recrystallize this as a pure form and take it from that. We actually decided that we would set out competitive bids. We would do a request for proposals with some outline of what we needed. We did that. We got multiple bids back. And actually, there's a precedented pathway that's a bit simpler. So you can take a protected starting material that's part of the extraction and put it in the GMP suite and do the deprotections and the purification in your GMP suite. and get out GMP product that's applicable for early stage clinical development. So this simplifies our path a bit. We had two vendors who both came up with the same path independently, and the cost went down by, order of magnitude. So this is very helpful. Also, the timing was much shorter now because the pathway is very straightforward. So that made us very happy because complexity is not the greatest thing you want at this stage. And then our critical to quality attributes or the specifications, we've done some work here. This was good old fashioned chemistry. What happens if you change these subunits? What happens if you change those subunits? Does it get this? Does it get that? And we've come up with optimized subunits that let us get, as you can see, across multiple batches, very tight size, dispersity, polydispersity, drug loading, drug release. And we're very happy to say that that's true in our hands and also in the hands of our collaborators. So we're pretty excited about that. And so then this is just a plan for GMP represented manufacturing. So right now, the first step is done in round bottoms with stirring and addition. It's done in very carefully and in a certain way. And as you might imagine, as a person, when you're adding things, it's not very consistent sometimes, and you end up with some variation that you didn't necessarily want. So when you go to GMP, you can't do that. So we'll use a reactor or mixer that has the ability to add and control that add and mechanically stir to allow that to happen. Those first three steps are controlled additions and steps of different in the order of which they're added and which ones are added and how is part of the special sauce that allows us to make the drug. Yes.
Sorry. Do you think robotics in the future will help perfect that kind of a process?
Yeah, this one is actually probably will be driven by robotics because their mixers will be automatic. So, and then there'll be some pecan type things that add things at a certain rate at a certain time when you want them to. So it'll all be automated in that way. The nice thing is it's a single reaction, right? So and then what comes out of that, then what we do now is dialysis and centrifugation and rotary evaporator and all that stuff. We won't do all that. We'll put it on a tangential flow filtration to do all of those things in one step.
Amazing.
And then goal 4 is all about GLP tox, which we have planned. We've done competitive bidding. We've gotten multiple bids from multiple places and selected the one we think is the lead and negotiated payment terms and schedules. And we'll start this up later this year once we have the product in the larger scale. That scale up, that GMP scale up and tech transfer started at the beginning of the year and is well on its way. So our analytical has just been completed and we're now ordering equipment to make sure that we can do that TFF and those types of things. And then the last one for goal 5 is a pre-IND meeting with the FDA, which we'll do this summer. We had an initial target engagement for regulatory advice on CEDAR products or an Interact feedback earlier in 2024, which was quite nice. But there were some changes to the strategy based on that feedback, which included that cyclopamine needed more characterization than the team had initially thought, which was fine. And that we need the polymers. We weren't sure if the polymers would be considered part of the novel drug, but the FDA actually considers them novel excipients, which for us is good. Novel excipients are easier to develop than being part of the API. So we have a proposed toxicology plan. They said it appeared sufficient. They recommended adding a couple of arms. We did. And the biggest win probably was that we can quantify total plasma CPA and PTX in the non-clinical studies. And that's important because it's really hard bioanalytically to quantify free drug, encapsulated drug, and protein-bound drug individually. But in this case, we don't have to do that. We lyse the cells. We do total drug content, which is much easier to develop. For our pre-IND meeting, we will talk to them about our proposed GPM plan for cyclopamine to make sure that they're good with it. Like I said, there's precedence, but it's always nice to tell them what you're doing and get some feedback. Our duration and dosing plan for toxicology is to ensure that it's sufficient for not just the dose escalation, but the dose expansion that we have planned and get some feedback on the actual dose escalation protocol from them. It doesn't want to work and then it works twice. Story of my life. All right. So the last thing that isn't really part of the deliverables, but is important to us is a capital raise. We're working on a seed round at the moment to cover the rest of the IND enabling studies that's not covered from the CPRIT funds, and we have a National Cancer Institute grant as well. So I just wanted to talk a little bit about that funding progress. We're constantly doing non-dilutive funding, so we've submitted applications to the DoD, to the NIH for academic industry partnerships for CDMRP impact grants. We just in May, we have submitted a National Cancer Institute TTNCI grant, which is all about translating nanotechnology in cancer. We are part of a consortium with MD Anderson that goes in on Friday, so that's been a little crazy this week. I had a grant due on Monday, which was the R01, and then on Friday, which was the ARPA-H. And then we'll try for the Lyda Hill Philanthropy. So Lyda Hill's done a great job of really supporting the Texas-based companies, and one of their prizes actually is applicable to our situation. So we will ask. And then the capital raise, I'm sure you're aware that the market's not been a very pleasant place to be in for the last couple of years. It does seem to be getting better. There's some liquidity coming back into the market, which I'm very happy about. Some M&A going on and some money going back into the coffers that should help free up some of this. Along those lines, we did a lot of investor outreach, but we weren't getting a lot of traction. So we engaged Avalanche Capital. Now we were careful who we engaged because there are a lot of people that say they will help you and they take money and then they do nothing. These guys actually provide an AI enhanced targeted outreach. So they take what you're doing, they take what you're looking for, and then they use AI to find the right matches in the market for what you have for impact investors, for high net worth individuals, for angels, and for institutional investors. And they've been really, really good. And now we're taking 2 to 3 meetings a week with investors. And we've had several in our data room and gotten very positive feedback back on our due diligence deck. So I'm feeling a lot more at ease that there actually might be a light at the end of this tunnel on our race. And so we're getting really good feedback and quite a lot of follow-ups and interest. So stay tuned. Hopefully this space will be very exciting in the next few months.
Yeah.
And just a timeline in case you want to see it, which puts us in IND in 2027 and starting our first in human in 2027. Are there any other questions? Happy to answer them. Yes.
Leslie, excellent presentation.
Yes.
You start off by saying if you alter the tumor microenvironment, there could be increased metastases.
It has been shown, yes.
And on your survival curves, you didn't show whether there was increased metastases with your therapy. And I realize you must have done that.
I did.
So could you talk about that a little bit?
Yes. So we used a genetically engineered mouse model because that's one of the best models to predict metastases, right? So like in orthotopic models, when you inject the tumors into the pancreas and allow them to grow, they don't metastasize the same way that they do when they're spontaneous. So we used a genetically engineered mouse model. We actually looked at it earlier so that you can see the impact you might have on that spread. And we see a statistically significant reduction in metastases across the boards. And we did that study. We looked at that it's a survival study. So we looked at it at necropsy. And so at necropsy, these animals have been off drug for quite a long time because you treat them for a while and then you let them go. And even off drug for quite a long time in a genetically induced model that creates tumors as a daily basis, right? We still see statistically significantly lower. In fact, most animals only had lesions in the pancreas, where gemcitabine, Abraxane, and the controls had 4 or 5, quite a number of spreads. So I can share that data if you'd like. It is part of our story. It wasn't in the things today. So and so we took that a next step further because we thought we should see that, but we wanted to know why. So we did a histology study where we looked at advanced tumors, and then we took half the animals and didn't treat them and half the animals and treated them for 2 weeks. And then we looked at histologically at the phenotypes of the tissue. And what we see is in the animals that aren't treated, we see a huge proportion of poorly differentiated and moderately differentiated tumor types. Those go on to become metastases. because they're quite aggressive. But in the treated animals, we have almost exclusively benign pancreatic tissue. So a reduction in that moderately differentiated and poorly differentiated of like 80 to 90% in hand-to-hand comparison. So that actually explains that drive of lower metastases, because you're lowering the types, the phenotypic cell types of the cancers that create the metastases.
So the reverse question is, did you take animals who had established, say, lung metastases?
We did not. We have not done that.
And treat them and look for response?
We have not done that. So what we can say is that we can delay or prevent metastases, but I can't tell you what happens when we treat animals that have metastases.
Any other questions for Dr. Sloan? Thank you very much. We
Thank you.
appreciate your presentation. Ms. Doyle will provide the Chief Executive Officer's report.
Good morning, members. I want to thank you again and thank CPRIT staff for an excellent work session / retreat that we had yesterday. I really appreciate all of the time and patience and really good feedback that you had provided yesterday for us. I think that very much helps in terms of driving us forward on all fronts. But it was exciting to hear in terms of the artificial intelligence and prevention strategies. So thank you. And that was quite a lot of work for our staff behind the scenes also, which I guess is really my theme for this very brief update. We have been extremely busy. I was thinking about our last Oversight Committee meeting when we left early to go to El Paso with Dee, who was a wonderful host for a great kind of kickoff of our Texas tour. And you'll hear more from Dr. Reckes about that Texas tour and what we've been doing and our plans upcoming for more visits. And I extend the invitation to all Oversight Committee members. You're welcome to join us on these trips. They're great. We get to go talk with the grantees, hear from them. They oftentimes have been organizing kind of mini research or prevention conferences for us. And we get to hear about their excitement and enthusiasm for what they're doing. So it really is the best part of the job. And kind of to that point, you know that we always provide you with updates about the presentations or meetings that we'll be attending. So you are always welcome also to attend those. So the Texas tour has been the fun part. The kind of internal work that we have been investing over these past several months that hopefully will pay off. One of them will be the grant management platform, and you'll hear from Soma about that later. Also, gosh, all of the work that's been going into the Innovations Conference that will be coming up in October. Heidi will give you an update on that. We're really looking forward to that, but as you can imagine, there's a lot of work right now doing all of the party planning and lining up all of the speakers and everything. We're also doing a lot of work in terms of the efficiency audit. We've been working with the state auditor's office. They are conscientious and very good to work with, but it is a lot of requests and documents and explanations. And I'm confident that we will have, good results in terms of what we'll learn from this. But it has been another job on top of our jobs that we have. Kind of the same thing with the grant management platform. All of us are, and especially our staff, are doing everything that we have to do to accept the applications, review the applications, process through the financial status reports, on and on and on. In addition to that, hundreds of hours of work is going into, and I keep saying this and it's true, literal blood, sweat, and tears, 17 years of experience is going into creating this new grant management platform that I think will really be excellent, not only for our grantees, but also for our staff. But it is quite a lot of work right now. So you'll hear all about that. I'll kind of, so the preview, believe it or not, we are starting now, getting ready for the 2027 legislative session. Later on the agenda, we will have the legislative appropriations request. I also had in my CEO report that we are working on the strategic plan that gets submitted to state leadership early next month, I think June 1st. So that is, it seems like we just finished the legislative session, but it is starting again. And it'll be a great session, great year. 2027 will be our 20th year since the vote. So there'll be a lot to talk about and a lot to report in terms of Texas's return on investment when it created CPRIT. The last thing that I will say before we move on to the rest of our agenda is I just want to recognize some of the new staff that we have brought on. So I'll ask them to stand or wave. So we have Jasmine Giles, who is our new program manager for product development. We also have Jacob Parker, who has been with CPRIT for some time now as a contract employee, but now he has joined CPRIT as a full CPRIT employee as one of our security analysts working with SOMA. So hopefully they both waved. I didn't see them. I also want to note some title changes that I have made since the last meeting. So both Dr. Miriam Casillas and Carlton Allen are now senior program managers. Dr. Casillas is for academic research, as you know. Carlton is now senior manager for prevention. Both of those recognize their experience and the additional responsibilities that they have taken on. In addition, Dr. Reckes, I have now made not only, because I have a penchant for really long titles, so she is now our Chief Prevention and Communications Officer. And so she has really jumped in and taken control of the strategic communications that we're doing that is so important, especially as we're looking to this next legislative session. So you will hear from her on her first communications update to you. So those are all my updates right now. Oh, I didn't say, although you guys have this in your packet, with the $105 million that you are scheduled to approve, if you approve that amount, we will have $23.6 million remaining for grant awards in August. So still a substantial amount of awards that will happen in August, but great work, everyone. So any questions?
Any questions for Ms. Doyle? Thank you very much, and welcome to the new staff members, and thank you to the current staff members who have diligently added to all their workload. We really appreciate your work. Thank you. Okay, the chair recognizes Mr. Burgess to present the Chief Compliance Officer's report.
Good morning, Oversight Committee members. Our report is behind tab 4 in your books. And I'm a giver, and I want to give Stephen the opportunity to present the update today. Before I do that, I also wanted to introduce a key member of our compliance team, Rashonda Thomas, if you could stand up. All right, yeah. She's amazing, as all our team is, but she is a critical part of our leadership team in the compliance department. So I wanted to give her a shout out. She's our lead compliance specialist. So you'll be seeing more of her. I told her she could be at Pier one day and enjoy all the fun. So I will pass this over to Stephen, and then we'll answer any questions that you have.
Thank you, committee members, and thank you, Vince, for being such a great giver. We always appreciate your giving. So as Kristen mentioned, it's been a very active quarter for the compliance team. So I just wanted to highlight a few of the areas that I'd like to make mention that's mentioned in our report. So as of May 1st, we had 6 entities that had not filed 4 academic research reports and 6 product development reports. Again, well below our threshold of delinquent reports. Also, the compliance team reviewed 627 second level review for this past quarter, which again, large amounts of FSRs being submitted, with only 6% of those requiring any additional rework, which is a phenomenal statistic. For our desk and on-site reviews, we performed 8 enhanced desk reviews for this past quarter, along with 13 on-site reviews. So very active on-sites. Our team's been all over Texas for this past quarter. Following up with our match expenditure reviews. So for this quarter, we performed 12 of those annual match expenditure reviews. For this period, for the FY 2026, we've reviewed over $37.5 million worth of match review expenses. So that total amount is what we've reviewed for any duplicate expenditures, but then we take a subset of that and then we actually sample it based on last year's performance. And we've done that further sampling for a little over 15.5 million of that overall 37 million. And great news, we've only identified a little over $33,000 in unallowable expenses. So phenomenal job. And then those ones that were highlighted for unallowable expenses were matching expenses claimed before the grant, and then just some ineligible expenses that we found. Lastly, for our training, again, very active. We've not only completed our first of a series of our annual compliance trainings where we have a training for each one of our program areas, but we also completed 6 new grantee trainings. So we're starting to bring on more of those new grantees. They're getting all of their contracts lined out and approved, and then we start bringing them on and we do those new grantee trainings for them. And we also follow up with those new grantee trainings with an additional technical assistance training when they're getting ready to submit their first financial status report as well, just to really kind of solidify the expectation and what we need for those financial status reports. And then lastly, we also completed a new ASO training for one of our product development grantees. And as part of one of our on-site reviews, we also did some technical assistance training while we were in UT El Paso. And that concludes our updates. Glad to answer any questions you may have.
Are there any questions for Mr. Burgess or Mr. Nance? Yes, Mr. Montgomery.
How is the new grant management program going to affect what you all do?
The new platform will fully integrate all the things that, we have several different spreadsheets that we use outside of the system. We actually have a tracking and a workflow for all of our reporting internally that we send out to, for our desk reviews and on-site reviews. We have a workflow in SharePoint. So all the idea and plan is to integrate everything that we do. Instead of these many disparate systems, it'll be one system for us. So
Does that reduce the number of people you need or just make their jobs easier?
I think it will make our jobs easier and more cohesive in terms of, so for right now, like a grant accountant would do their first level review and then they email us and they upload this, documents to SharePoint. Then we go into SharePoint and we email them back, kind of like we were in 2000. So this will be the workflow will be streamlined in that respect. So just be more efficient, I believe.
I don't know if this is possible, but does this mean that we could love compliance even more?
I don't know if that's possible, Mr. Montgomery, but we could try. I think if you wore your I Love Compliance pin, I would think that would be a good idea, but
Mr. Margot?
I think you all ought to be moved up, given the dynamism of your report, to the first agenda item before the CEO report.
we'll ask Ms. Dole about that.
And is it a requirement that all your staffers be left-handed?
Yes, it is actually.
I'm glad.
Any
you
other
just-
questions? Yes, Dr. Rosenfeld.
Is this system the replacement for the GDIT system?
Yes, I mean, yes.
And so I imagine these systems will, like GDIT, are used many different locations.
Say, what was the question on that? Sorry.
So say like the GDIT grant system must be used by more entities other than CPRIT.
I'll let people who are more knowledgeable in that area answer that question, but my understanding is a lot of the system we use was built for us, but I don't know if that's accurate or not. Heidi, partially, a little bit. She can answer that.
Well, kind of where I'm going is with all the work that's been put on this to invent a new grant reporting system and maintenance system. Have you invented a commercial product?
I have no idea about that answer. So again, we'll leave it to the people who that's their wheelhouse.
Dr. Rice?
I'm going to just ask the obvious, and my theme is AI this week. So are you, as we think about the design of the new system, are you all participating in the design so that you might imagine that LLMs could be reviewing some things that are now manually done? You'd make our teams more efficient, not that you need less people, but you'd enable them to drive more deeply into the questions that are maybe the things that would need to be looked at.
Yes, absolutely. It's a great question. Even just the couple of days ago, we had a meeting with Deloitte and Soma and team about compliant processes and how we can streamline those. And again, I think AI is going to be a vital, integral part of the new GMP. Yes.
Any other questions? Okay, turning to the certification of the award slates that we will consider today, Mr. Burgess provided the written report certifying that the proposed awards and review process complied with CPRIT statute and administrative rules. Are there any questions for Mr. Burgess? Thank you very much.
Thank you.
And thank you to the compliance team for all your hard work. The chair recognizes the chair recognizes the CEO, Ms. Doyle.
Well, I was coming up just for the next agenda item. And while Dr. Hebert is coming up, I'll also address the question that Dr. Rosenfeld had in terms of creating a commercial project. I'll say this, we have been working with DIR and the work that we have done to customize the GMP system will certainly be beneficial, I think, to other Texas state agencies potentially. I'm thinking particularly of CPRIT that follow the same processes that we do or similar processes. Now, I think, and you certainly have heard, I think we have an excellent compliance and accounting program, review of the contracts, the progress reports, everything like that. But all of that was created as requirements through CPRIT. So somebody who has a similar requirements like that could license that from DIR. I say this just among friends. I'll say we are giving a great gift to CPRIT with the 17 years of CPRIT experience in terms of best practices for creating review processes, and they'll, if they choose to avail themselves of that, will have a tremendous benefit that, we have invested hundreds of hours helping to create. But I think that's all good for Texas.
Dr. Rice?
Thought I had it on, sorry. Given this is a public meeting, want to be extremely clear that an LLM that we might use in some way in the grant management system would obviously be an encapsulated one-way in only non-public, secure, private, system, and nothing that relates to the public LLMs that we know of now, at least as you use as a commercial individual user.
Yes, and Mr. Emanaki will be part of the agenda to talk about the grant management platform. So ask him also, but I'll say this. We have been working very closely with DIR. This is one of the benefits of working with DIR, which is the Department of Information Resources. It's essentially the state's IT department. We've been very lucky working with them. And so, of course, they also will make sure that we're following all of the requirements in terms of security and confidentiality for AI. But that is one of the reasons that helped push us to make the decision to work on the grant management platform, was to achieve a lot of efficiencies that we were not, and also to be able to benefit from an AI overlay, on many ways that will help us. It does not replace humans, but it will help us in terms of having, especially that first pass through. You've heard us talk so many times about especially the financial status reports and the massive volume of documents that come through that and require review. And so AI will help with that review, identify kind of the low-hanging fruit, but it will always be the human review that will be assisted by that.
Any other questions for Ms. Doyle? Thank you very much. Now the chair recognizes Dr. Hebert to introduce the Program Integration Committee's grant award recommendations. He will also provide the academic research program update.
Thank you. Always difficult to follow the scintillating presentation of compliance, but we'll try. I know you've already had this 123-page document that describes the proposed grants. I'm sure you've read it all very carefully, but I'm going to go through the grant portfolio a little bit and talk a little bit about it. I am going to try and keep my remarks contained to some degree because we've got a lot to go over. We're proposing $85 million worth of funding. This is one of the more exciting days for the academic research program because we really get to fund a lot of terrific science. So it's really exciting. So the first slide gives you a summary of the awards that we're making today. Really excited by all of these different awards. We have 58 awards. We actually had one withdrawal. So we initially had $80 million. Now we're down to $78 million. So we'll have $2 extra million for August. So that'll be terrific. I just want to point out a couple of things here. We did have to make a little bit of adjustment with the research training awards to fund all 7, and I'll go through that. So I think that's going to work out really well. And we're really excited by the Rural Oncology Trials Accelerator Awards. We're going to fund 5 of those really across Texas. So very exciting. And having wrapped up then this 26.2 funding cycle, we were then able to look back and realize that we had enough funds to reach back into 26.1 and fund 6 applications that we really wanted to fund, but we just didn't know that we had the money at the time. So these were deferred and wanted to bring those forward. And I just want to point out one of these that I think is very exciting. This is number 5 on this list. It's iProtect, where investigators at MD Anderson are actually injecting immune therapies into precancerous nodules. So not cancer. This is a prevention strategy to allow patients to avoid disfiguring head and neck surgeries because they've already had one surgery in most cases to remove a tumor. And by injecting the tumor directly with the immunotherapy, they're able to dissolve these tumors. It's really spectacular. But it moves immunotherapy into the prevention space. And so this is going to have profound effects, profound therapeutic benefits outside of Texas, across the world. It's really, really exciting. And it's just going to, and the patients are just so excited not to have to undergo these disfiguring surgeries.
A couple of years ago, Doc, we CPRIT funded a similar trial.
This is the follow-on.
This is the, yeah,
Yes,
it was an
absolutely.
amazing
This is the
representation Baylor
follow-on
did.
trial. Right.
Yes.
This is going to finish the study. Yeah, absolutely. That's impressive that you remembered that. That's fantastic. In terms of the priorities addressed, we're hitting all of them, and I just want to point out that we're hitting the childhood and adolescent cancers with 10 awards this cycle. So really, really fantastic. All right, I want to go through then some of these awards that we're making. We've got 6 core facilities. These are really the underpinning of the infrastructure of some of the best things that we do. I just want to point out numbers 3 and 4 on this list because you've all heard a lot about Crossbridge Bio and what the great success that was for our product development team. Those 2 cores underpin the discoveries that led to Crossbridge Bio. So really fantastic. And it's really a testament to how well these core facilities work. In terms of the research training awards, this is where we've had to make some adjustments. We had enough funds budgeted for about 3 or 4 of these, but there were 7 that came in as recommended for funding and really outstanding. And so what we've done is we funded the best of the best, the top 3 best scoring awards, fully funded those at the current funding level. So this isn't, we couldn't increase them as we proposed last year. We kept the funding level at $800,000 a year for 5 years, so $4 million. Those will then go on. And now we want to break this bolus of training awards up a little bit. We would like some to come back in 3 years. This saves us money this year and allows us to fund other things by cutting them down to 3 years. Same amount of money, $800,000, but for 3 years. I hate to make people write grants again in 3 years. We don't love that. But that allows these investigators to come back in 3 years and then ask for another 5-year extension at that point. And this just spreads things out for us and allows us to make a little bit better utilization of money this year, and means we don't have to plan for so many training awards next year. So I think that's a great way, and by doing that, we could fund 7 of them this year. So that's the funding strategy there. Now, I'm not going to go through all 26 high impact, high risk grant awards here, but we have deferred 3 of these that were recommended for funding. I'm anticipating we'll be able to pick these up in August, we hope, but we'll see how the funding goes. It all obviously depends on the number of recruitments and other things that we get, but we have 26 high impact, high risk awards, and really excited by the science here. Now, in terms of the childhood survivorship RFA that we had last year, we have 1 application. These are multi-investigator awards, very large awards, really fantastic and outstanding award coming out of MD Anderson, really hit this RFA perfectly. And so we're recommending funding that at nearly $5 million a year for 5 years. Now, these are the Rural Oncology Trial Accelerator Awards. These are infrastructure awards to stimulate clinical trials across Texas. And I just want to point out that this was a real hit. Fantastic. We've got 2 awards that are targeted into the Valley. We've got an award for Tyler. We've got West Texas. The only part of this that was a little bit painful is we had an award that was approved at Lubbock, but the principal investigator left Texas Tech, and so that one had to be withdrawn. So, but I think this is really exciting, and we're excited to see how this turns out. I think it's going to be really impactful. Now, in terms of the actual personnel awards, this first one is an exciting one because it is going back into Lubbock. Dr. Aaron Barr is the local principal investigator for all of the children's oncology group trials in Lubbock. And we've been able to retain her with this award. So this is really fantastic. Now I want to go through the recruitment awards, and I'm not going to spend as much time as I'd like to, but I have to spend a little bit of time on the first one. This is an Established Investigator Award for Andre Newsenvig. And he is a triple Academy winner here. He is in the Academy of Science, Medicine, and AAS. He's also a member of the European Molecular Biology Organization and probably one of the top 2 or 3 investigators at the National Institutes of Health. And MD Anderson is going to, we hope, will be able to recruit him. So this is just fantastic. This is exactly what we want to do with these Established Investigator Awards. So this one is just super exciting. So we're fingers crossed that Dr. Newsenvig will join us. Now we have 3 rising stars as well. These are fantastic. I'll just point out that Jose Clemente, Dr. Clemente is sort of the epitome of this. He's got 130 publications and is an associate professor, 91,000 citations. This is really impressive, just spectacular. Now we have 9, or I guess 8 now, because we did lose one, first-time faculty members. And I'll just point out that we have 2 of these, and one is here, Dr. Polinen on the bottom, and then Dr. Yurnani from the University of Texas at Austin, that are focused on childhood cancers. So this is really fantastic. We have to recruit faculty to work on childhood cancers if we really want to make a difference. And so we're really excited by this. But there's just a number of these that are just spectacular investigators. So we're really excited by this. All right. Do we need to pause here, or should I go ahead and talk about the RFAs?
You can,
I just have a
I'm
quick
sorry,
question.
Dr.
Sure.
Hernandez.
You had a scientist moving from MD Anderson to MD Anderson.
Yes. So I should point that out. We actually had 3 of our first-time faculty members stay at their institutions, which is allowed for first-time faculty members. It's a little unusual, but I think it highlights our success at training, that we really have had a big impact at training investigators at these institutions, that and it highlights that they have national searches and they're finding their best person in the department next to them. And usually it is, they're switching departments.
I'm glad you clarified that, because it seems like we're just moving one person from one building to the next.
Right.
But there's more to it.
There is more to it.
So I'm glad you said that.
And it's and it is, and there's some fantastic investigators. One of them was Dr. Griffin, and he found that actually vaccinating people for COVID actually stimulated the effect of immunotherapies for cancer. And that's a kind of a mind-blowing observation. But what it's doing is it's priming your immune system. And it's a specific vaccination. It's the mRNA vaccine with a nanoparticle, in a nanoparticle. So it's that combination. And it's not necessarily COVID. It could be influenza. It could be a different vaccination. So really is this priming of your immune system. And then the immunotherapy has a bigger impact. So there's still a lot that we don't know about immunotherapies. We've only had them for about 10 or 15 years, and we are still learning. And so that's really exciting.
At this point, are there any other questions for Dr. Ebert? Okay, you can continue. Thank you.
All right. I want to go through quickly go through our RFAs for 2027.1. Recruitment is going to be a big part of what we do, of course. And cycle 1 opens June 22nd. So that's just around the corner. So we're excited to see how this moves forward. In terms of the cycle 2 RFAs for fiscal year 27, we're going to reinitiate our clinical investigator awards and our clinical trials networks awards. We hope this synergizes with our ROTA awards, our rural oncology trial awards, to put trialists into those sites and to establish clinical trial networks. We think that there's going to be a lot of synergy there. We're going to have core facility support awards and research training awards again. So we want to keep these coming. These are very important for the infrastructure of our state. And I think we heard yesterday, artificial intelligence, this would really fit well with core facilities and training. So I think this could be really exciting. We have a couple of our Texas Regional Excellence in Cancer Awards, our TREC Awards, that are up for renewal. So we want to reissue that award. And we want to continue recruitment and retention of clinical trials. We don't have enough clinical trials in Texas, so it's very important. Now, we want to modify our high impact, high risk awards and turn that into what we're going to call our CPRIT Catalyst Award. This is going to be a more general pilot. The high risk part of that pilot is always a little bit hard for investigators and for reviewers to thread. And we know that we've got a lot of investigators who could really use an infusion of a pilot to their established line. So not something that's new and innovative, but maybe it should still be quite innovative, of course, but within their normal work. And so the catalyst, I think, will be really good. And this might even keep applications going or programs going that the NIH didn't fund just simply because the pay line is so low at the NIH right now. The other other RFA that I'm really excited about is the Texas Regional Training Award. So these are going to be training awards. They're going to be a little bit smaller, but they're going to be focused for TREC institutions and non-traditional, I would call them, institutions, non-NCI designated cancer centers. One of the things about our Texas tour is we're recognizing that there are fantastic investigators and fantastic training programs across Texas, and they're underfunded. And this is a way that we can really fund various investigators and get that training, and hopefully those students and fellows will then stay in Texas. But we know a lot of them will leave because they're fantastic, but we're really excited by this. We think this is going to have a lot of impact. And as we look forward to 27.1 for the November meeting, we are actively involved in reviewing and looking at these applications. For our individual research awards, last year we had 515. This year we have 620. Really exciting that we have so many applications. We knew this was going to be the case because the NIH pay lines are going down. So we're very popular this year. But as you can see, that would be $602 million just in individual research awards. We're only going to be able to initially fund probably 50 of these. So our pay line is going down as the number of applications goes up, obviously. So it's going to be hard, but perhaps we can squeeze out a little bit more. I'd love to get the pay line to be 10 percentile, but we'll see what we can do. And with that, I'll stop and take any questions.
Any questions for Dr. Hebert?
Yeah, very good. All right, thank you so much.
Thank you. Mr. Burgess has certified compliance for the Academic Research Award process. It is my understanding that Dr. Hernandez has reported a conflict of interest with the Rural Oncology Trials Accelerator Award slate. Are there any other conflicts? Members, you have the list of applications and grant amounts recommended by the PIC for the Academic Research Grant Awards. We will approve the PIC's recommendations if 2/3 of the Oversight Committee members present and voting agree. There are 65 academic research grant recommendations that we will consider in 2 motions. First, we will vote on the slate that Dr. Hernandez has identified as a conflict of interest, and he will recuse himself. We will vote on the remaining award slates together in a second motion. If a member wants to consider one or more award recommendations separately from the vote on all the slates, please make a motion to do so now. I will entertain a motion to approve the 5 recommendations for the Rural Oncology Trials Accelerator Award mechanism.
So moved. Second.
All in favor vote aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Hearing approval from at least 2/3 of the members present and able to vote, the motion carries. I note for the record that Dr. Hernandez recused himself and did not vote on this slate. I will entertain a motion to approve the PIC's remaining 60 recommendations for the following academic research grant award mechanisms: Core Facility Support Awards, High Impact, High Risk Research Awards, Multi-Investor Research Awards, Recruitment or Retention of Clinical Trialists Award, Research Training Awards for Workforce Development, Individual Investigator Research Awards, Individual Investigator Research Awards for Clinical Trials, Recruitment of Established Investigators, Recruitment of First-Time Tenure-Track faculty members, and Recruitment of Rising Stars.
Second.
All in favor vote aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Hearing approval from at least 2/3 of the members present and voting, the motion carries. I will entertain a motion delegating contract negotiation authority to the CEO and CPRIT staff and to authorize the CEO to sign the contracts on behalf of CPRIT.
Second.
All in favor vote aye. Any opposed? Motion carries. I will entertain a motion to approve the fiscal year 2027 requests for applications that Dr. Ebert presented today.
Second.
All in favor vote aye. Any opposed? Motion carries. Thank you very much.
Thank you all. Thank you.
The chair recognizes Dr. Reckes to provide the prevention program and communications update.
Good morning. Thank you so much for the opportunity to present. Now I have to follow the scintillating compliance presentation and a very exciting research presentation. But we're very glad to be here and to share about the prevention and communications. We'll do one update today. And fortunately, we had the opportunity in the work session yesterday to talk quite a bit about the success of the prevention program over the last 17 years. It was very wonderful to discuss that and share more about the status of our program. So just a few updates today for you. We are planning for our cycle 2. It is planned to open in the new grants management platform, which you'll hear more about on September 1st, 2026. And that will include the same RFAs that are currently open for the prevention program right now: primary prevention of cancer, cancer screening, early detection, and the dissemination of CPRIT-funded cancer control interventions. Per our discussion yesterday, we're going to continue to look at those RFAs, look for opportunities for the best possible ways to continue to support prevention within the state of Texas. So if we have any recommendations or changes for those, we'll bring those back to you at the next meeting. But that is our current plan. We are also seeing a rise in the number of applications that we're receiving in the RFA that is open right now, which is a testament to the great work that CPRIT has done and the interest and the rigor with which the programs that go through the CPRIT program which are funded go through. So we're excited to see that, and we look forward to reporting to you on the continuation of that RFA as well too. So that's a brief update on our prevention program. Happy to keep going. I'll just keep going with our communications update now. So this is my first opportunity to present to you as in my now dual role as Chief Prevention and Communications Officer. And as Kristen mentioned, we had a wonderful Texas tour 2026. So just a few pictures of that for you here, with visits to El Paso, to Bryan, to Galveston, to a number of places in Houston, to Edinburgh as well. And so that really has been an opportunity for us just to hear and to listen from our grantees, from the Communications Public Affairs Office within those institutions as well, and understand how we can collectively be telling the story of success in Texas. Again, I'm still pretty new, so it is not lost on me what an amazing thing Texas has done here to really create a cancer ecosystem that is like no other. In my 7 months, I've had an opportunity to read through sort of what other states have been doing and just talk with people about what is happening. And it is very clear that what has happened in Texas is a model for other states, is a model for the country. And so just very proud to be part of this team and to have the opportunity to work with all of you and to work with the amazing institutions that CPRIT supports, as well as community-based organizations and others to do more to tell the story of CPRIT as that moves forward. We started really ramping up our social media presence, and the amazing communications team we already have has been leading that. For example, in February, we had 13 LinkedIn posts, and last month we had 31. So if you're not already on LinkedIn, we ask you to, to follow, to share, to make sure that you're spreading the word. We're using that channel as well as other social media channels to continue to talk about CPRIT. And we're looking at what other things work well. Of course, you all receive an activities memo from us, and looking at what are the best channels for us to share the work, particularly before the upcoming legislative session, and just making sure we're getting the word out about the good work that is happening. So welcome any additional thoughts from Kristen, or happy to share more about any of that.
Any questions? Yes, Mr. Taylor.
How do you handle the press? How do you get the word out to more than the people on the slides? Do you invite the press to the programs?
That's a great question. So, so many of our programs have opportunities to share with press, and so we do try and track that, look at that, be aware of those. We always send out a media advisory before these meetings, for example, to make sure that we are notifying people and that is going to the press. And then we'll do similar. We'll have a press release after this meeting about the results of this meeting and what we're able to support there. And I know the team has done that in other specific ways before too. And I know Kristen was on the news last time. And so we are always looking at that, but welcome your thoughts on that, and something that we'll continue to work on as well.
Yes,
The
Mr. Margo.
institutions also do their own PR. TAG did their PR, UTEP did their PR. They all kind of still do their own thing.
Absolutely.
We also have in our contract that if they are putting out something that CPRIT has helped to fund, so publication, or if a company is announcing something, that they credit CPRIT also as part of their press release and share that with us. And so that is another way that we are promoting the message of what CPRIT's funding through our grantees.
Any additional questions? Okay, thank you very much.
Thank you.
Okay.
Ruth, on communications, is there a way you could help Mr. Montgomery in that area? This is a thought, as an aside, offline.
Or Mr. Margot's lack.
We look forward to working with all of you in our communications efforts. Thank you very much.
Thank you. I will entertain a motion to approve the fiscal year 2027 request for applications that Dr. Reckes presented today. All in favor vote aye. Any opposed? Motion carries. Moving on to agenda item 10, the chair recognizes Dr. Smith to introduce the Program Integration Committee's grant award recommendations. He will also provide the product development program update.
Good morning. So this cycle is about 26-2 cycle. That's our supplemental cycle. That's a cycle we implemented last time to actually give more money to companies that were doing well under our original CPRIT grant. And so this should have been kind of a simple process. We basically, do the first slide if you would, basically had 10 companies apply. 9 were ultimately reviewed. The one company basically wasn't eligible. They kind of jumped the gun in terms of timing. So we reviewed the 9. The process basically is they do about a 20-page application. The reviewers, PDRC reviewers, basically look at the applications. They look and get questions. The questions are sent back to the companies, and then there's about an hour interview because we're familiar with these companies, so it doesn't have to be as extensive as it was in the past when you're just getting original CPRIT money. So 9 went through, they were rank ordered, and then something happened that is good news. Crossbridge Bio was bought by Eli Lilly for $300 million. Well, Crossbridge Bio had 2 CPRIT grants. One was a seed grant for $2.6 million, and then they got a $15 million grant in November. You guys voted on it in November. And so Eli Lilly basically bought them. They didn't need the CPRIT grant anymore. They had drawn down about $2.5 million. They gave that back. And now, fortunately for us, we can redeploy that money. And so we step back, and I'm taking this a little bit out of order just to kind of give you the overview of everything. So now we had 15 million plus about 7.5 million that were left over from the 26-1 cycle. So what we were able to do is redeploy the money for whoever was next in the queue from the 26-1 cycle, which affected this cycle because that company also had a grant for the supplemental cycle that would have been funded, except for the fact that we're going to give them the bigger chunk of change and the rest of them then. So that's the reason it's a little out of order. This company would have been funded under the supplemental cycle. So if we can do the next slide, please. So these are the 4 companies that we're recommending for, PIC recommended for the 26-2 awards. And you see the totals about 5.3 million. And I'll go through those kind of quickly, what they are. So we did that, and then basically Indapta will get their 26-1 award that was deferred. So kind of to summarize, the 9 companies here, 4 are recommended for funding, 5 are deferred, because we still may have some more money that we can deploy before the end of this fiscal year when we meet next time in August. So we're looking that over at this point in time. But for today, these are the 4 companies. Next slide, please. As you might imagine, they address the priorities simply because we funded them once before. So the assumption would be that they would still fulfill them, and they do. So next slide. And these are the companies just kind of briefly, right? So March Biosciences has a CAR T therapy. They're going to use the supplemental funding for an 8-patient hematopoietic stem cell transplantation cohort to evaluate its inclusion in MB-105's registration plan. Next one. Xeriant. Xeriant has a mucosal adhesive emifostine formulation. They're going to be able to complete their phase 1 study, add a cohort, and it'll support regulatory and trial planning activities. Next one. Panther Therapeutics. PTM-101 is an implantable paclitaxel polylactic acid glycolic acid film that delivers chemotherapy directly to a pancreatic tumor. And they'll be able to do a variety of things, not the least of which is to de-risk trial execution and advance the program towards a phase 2 and 3. And finally, you saw them today. You know all about the technology. Omni Nano is the third one. And it'll support funding for IND essential enabling activities, including additional GLP tox cohorts. One of the things I wanted to say too about what I find interesting, I just thought I'd bring this up because everybody's been pretty quick today, is that CMC is a really important part of any product that gets onto the market. And I just want you to know that our reviewers really concentrate on CMC. So a lot of times we think about the scientific aspect of almost all of these projects, right? But there are other aspects, and you all well know when it comes to product development, how important these aspects can be. So CMC is one of them, certainly regulatory and clinical trial design and things along those lines. So I just wanted to point that out because a good portion of just trying to get the market is actually being able to make the product. Next slide, please. Oh, so this is the next one. This is the deferred award recommendation, and this goes to Indapta. Indapta, as you can see, they have a product basically with natural killer cells generated from healthy donors in combination with AFM28. And so this will be an award for 12.8 million based on, like I said, 26-1. So we don't lose that money because, as you well know, if we don't use it in the fiscal year, it goes to the end of time. So this is great that we can redeploy it. And what I found interesting is I was very skeptical when we got, a call from Crossbridge and the timing of this. So we got a call from Crossbridge. We probably talked to them in March, and they said that this deal would be done by April. And I told Kristen, I go, yeah, that's not going to happen. 3 weeks, took them 3 weeks, and they actually executed on it. So that's great for us because if we had gotten very close to the end of August, it would have been very difficult to redeploy this money and would have been not utilized. So this is great that we can actually use this money to, and I have a feeling based on talking to Kristen today that we're going to have a few more of these kind of things, sales or asset sales. And so that should be interesting in the coming years. Next slide, please. This is 27-1. I think you're all familiar with our different RFAs, the therapeutics, diagnostics, new technologies, and seeds. And as you can see from some of the companies that we're doing supplementals with, right, we've kind of gotten out of necessarily, we still get more therapeutic applications than almost anything, but we're starting to get deliveries of different types of well-known drugs done in a different way, you know. And so I think that's interesting, kind of the change that's happened, that we can do different technologies now. And of course, we've had to expand our base of expertise, AI being I'll speak about that in a second, because you have to say AI every half hour, or they don't allow you. You don't allow. Yeah, you're right. So those are the 4 awards that we have, still the same as they have been over the last 4 times. Next slide, please. And just the timing of it. So the RFAs were posted. We only posted the RFAs for 10 days. And the next slide will show you 207. So that's about a 30% increase over last time, which was 164. The money's close to the same. It was like 1.1 billion last time. It's 1.241 now. And that probably is due to the number of seed companies, right? The seed companies are limited to 3 million. So right there, you can see, but almost everybody's asking for 3 million, right? 3 million times 104, 3 million. So that was interesting, the seed companies. And then the AI portion of it, I haven't been through all 207, but you know, you can tell from the titles and some of the summaries and stuff like that, AI is a big component.
Is that number of seed apps much higher than it was before? I just can't recall. Seems like that's a lot more than of the
Yes,
seeds.
it is. And in
That's
fact,
good news, because we're trying to form companies, right?
yeah, and I want to send it to you. I had GDIT basically do a kind of we've been doing this for about 4 years now, this particular kind of way of preliminary applications. And I have a much more information in terms of the 4 years, how many seeds, how many starts. And so I'll send that all to you once it wasn't quite complete. I want to get it complete, and then I'll send it to you next week or the week after. But yeah, that's the most seeds that I think we've had. Next slide. This just kind of shows you the geographic distribution. I always think it's interesting that California and Massachusetts, if you can't get money there, you got to come to Texas. So I find that kind of curious. But the one thing I find most curious is the one international submission, Canada. And there's lots of reasons to think. We do hear a little bit about people who are concerned about moving to the United States, given the immigration situations and things along those lines. That said, we spend a lot of time discussing, you know, CPRIT with people from all over the world. When I was at JP Morgan, I talked to a couple of people, not people, but groups who represented a large number of companies from Australia. The Japanese contingent, we just talked to them recently. Belgians, almost every time I go to bio, we talk to people from Belgium. Wayne, and went to Israel. So it's not as though people aren't curious about it, but we don't really seem to see the numbers of applications. And it's difficult, right? It's hard enough to move from Wyoming here, let alone from someplace outside the United States, establishing residencies and immigration status. So I find that a little bit interesting, because we do have a lot of interest, and yet no one seems to apply.
Yeah, I've got to say, this is like the lowest number we have ever seen in terms of international applications. And Ken's right. We are invited to speak many times with delegations, both that are visiting in Texas and also through webinars. So I think kind of once everything kind of settles down, we'll see more international applications again. It's been, you know, we have a lot of success stories with our international companies. You know, the one that I always like to talk about is Amatics. You know, they were a German company. You know, if they are applying to Texas, they have to commit to having their U.S. headquarters in Texas. So Amatics came here with 12 people, then, you know, based in Houston. The project that CPRIT funded them for, the science ended up not playing out, but Amatics had come here, liked it. They now have more than 200 people employed at their company in Texas. They have a 100,000 square foot facility. They're providing services here in Texas. So that's the story we want. Obviously, we want cures and treatments, but but we know science will play out the way science will play out. So we want to build that Texas ecosystem also. So the international companies are a big part of that, and we'll keep working on it. Ken and Jasmine are going to Bio International.
Yeah.
So
I'll meet with the Belgians again
they do have really good chocolate.
over a beer. So this is in Texas. Obviously, most of our applications come from Texas, and again, it's still very similar to historical data, where Houston area is the largest representation, and followed by Dallas and Austin. It just seems to continue to expand that way. But I'll have, like I said, I'll get the data together for the last 4 years and send it to you.
Ken, how's Panther Therapeutics doing with their study they're doing with the gel? Have you got any updates from them?
What's that?
The Panther Therapeutics, remember that gel with the
Right.
chemo? How is it doing? Have you got any
Feedback in terms
feedback
of,
from
yeah,
them?
it's still progressing and stuff like that. And obviously it was just, getting far enough along in their goals.
Right.
Again, that's another kind of CMC issue, right? I mean, the drug's well known. It's just basically a delivery system. So. Last one, that's it.
Any questions for Dr. Smith? Yes, Mr. Taylor.
In one of your slides for the different companies, you had Nano, and the way I read the slide was that they were asking for supplemental money for FDA requirements or something, they apparently could come back from the FDA and they said, you need to do this, this, and this, and they approached us for supplemental money. How often does that occur?
That the supplemental money goes to some kind of change from the FDA.
Okay.
Yeah, I mean, the supplemental money can be used for a variety of different things, right? If they add a cohort, things do change. We have several companies, right, where their project has to change over time. And so as long as they're making progress with their goals, then they still are eligible for funding. We have to be a little bit flexible in terms of what happens, right, when they get feedback, not only from the FDA, but you get feedback from like doing manufacturing and things change. We've had companies too that have backup plans basically for they might have a lead molecule, but they have a secondary molecule in case they run into issues. So all of those things are fundable.
Any additional questions? I do have a question for clarification. We're going to be approving 4 awards, correct?
It's 4 supplemental awards and 1 deferred company award.
Okay,
So 5.
5 total. Thank you. Mr. Burgess has certified compliance for the Product Development Research Award process. It is my understanding that no Oversight Committee member reported a conflict of interest with any of the proposed awards. Members, you have the list of applications and grant amounts recommended by the PIC for the Product Development Research Grant Awards. We will approve the PIC's recommendation if 2/3 of the Oversight Committee members present and voting agree. There are 5 product development research grant recommendations that we will consider together in one. If a member wants to consider one or more award recommendations separately from the vote on the slates, please make a motion to do so now. I will entertain a motion to approve the PIC's 5 recommendations for the following product development research grant mechanisms: supplemental awards for product development research and Texas Therapeutics Company awards. All in favor, vote aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Hearing approval from at least 2/3 of the members present and voting, the motion carries. I will entertain a motion delegating contract negotiation authority to the CEO and CPRIT staff and to authorize the CEO to sign the contracts on behalf of CPRIT.
So moved.
All in favor, vote aye. Any opposed? Motion carries. Members, Ms. Doyle notified the board on May 15th that she seeks authority to disperse grant funds in advance to the 5 companies we have just approved for awards. Are there any questions for Ms. Doyle regarding her request?
Just a quick question, just to clarify.
Yes.
Would you advance grants potentially to the to the 5th that's not a supplemental, but that's a deferred? Do I get this right? And maybe I'm just in the weeds.
Yeah, so it's for the five companies. they would receive.
Including the one that's being deferred?
Yes. Well, the company was previously deferred. Now it's being approved for an award. We are removing it from the deferred list, and you
I
have
see.
approved it.
Thank you. Thank you.
Yeah, and I know that we don't put all of this in the motion because the motions would become just too long, but they only receive advanced funding once they've executed the contract, have the matching funds, and have fulfilled all of the requirements.
Pursuant to the General Appropriations Act, Article 9, Section 4.02A, do I have a motion to authorize CPRIT to disperse grant funds via advance payments upon execution of any contract documents related to the grants and the successful completion of tranches to the 5 companies approved for awards today? All in favor vote aye. Any opposed? Motion carries. Moving on to agenda item 11. In our work session yesterday, Dr. Smith laid out several recommended updates to CPRIT's standard revenue sharing standards applicable to product development grants. Are there any questions for Dr. Smith regarding his recommendations? Hearing none, I will entertain a motion approving the proposed changes to CPRIT's standard revenue sharing standards for new product development grants.
So moved.
All in favor vote aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Motion carried.
Thanks.
The chair recognizes Ms. Doyle to present her appointments to the Scientific Research and Prevention Program committees.
Members, I have listed and provided the bios for the 6 people being recommended for appointment to the Scientific Research and Prevention Program committees. Those are behind tab 8. These have been presented to the Board Governance Subcommittee. The Board Governance Subcommittee recommends approval.
Are there any questions for Ms. Doyle? Is there a motion to approve the CEO's 6 appointments to the Scientific and Prevention Program committees?
Second.
All in favor vote aye. Any opposed? Motion carries. Turning to agenda item 13, I recognize Ms. Doyle to present the presiding officer's new appointments to the Geographic Diversity Advisory Committee and the Advisory Committee on Childhood Cancers.
Members, you have the names and bios of the 3 people that the chair recommends to be appointed to the advisory committees, to the Geographic Diversity Advisory Committee and to the Advisory Committee on Childhood Cancers.
Are there any questions? Members, is there a motion to approve the 3 advisory committee appointments? All in favor vote aye. Any opposed? Motion carries. Thank you. Dr. Ebert, will you introduce Dr. Sohan to present the University Advisory Committee report?
You all have Dr. Chohan's bio in your books and their tab 10, so I don't want to spend any time really going over that, but I do want to just thank Dr. Chohan. Most of the changes that we've implemented in the academic research program have come through the university committee, and Dr. Chohan's had to deal with all of my desires to change and to try and improve and fund more people. And so I just really thank him for his leadership, and I especially thank him for coming up today from UTRGV to present what the University Advisory Committee has been recommended. So thank you.
Oh, very good morning to everyone. And I'm really so glad to see all of you. And I'm really thankful to all of you. Despite of a very busy schedule, you came here and supporting CPRIT. So thank you very much from CPRIT team and on behalf of CPRIT University Advisory Committee. So my name is Subhash Chauhan, and I'm visiting this place from University of Texas, Rio Grande Valley. And So I'm a professor of cancer immunology and microbiology there in medical school. And I'm also director of Cancer Research Center. So I'd just like to give some brief about what University Committee is doing and what we have been doing over the year. So next slide, please. So on this University Advisory Committee, we have representation from whole Texas. And you can see we are covering almost every area, including Rio Grande Valley. So I'm really glad to see, and this is our committee right here. So we have Dr. Abby Branson, he's the vice chair, and Dr. Carlos Artiaga, he is our past chair, and Dr. Deborah Clegg, Dr. Peter Davies, Dr. Yael Gottlieb, and Dr. Joe Huppert, Dr. Sheikh Mandian, Claudia Nasir, David Soul, and Dr. Pawan Reddy. So all these members are very active in their work, and they are either university or institutional representative or senior administrative leaders, or they have been CPRIT funded scholar. So their profile is pretty high in my opinion. The next slide, please. So we had 3 meetings so far last year, and we discussed different recruitment awards and how we can do some budget allocation to address the need. And we also discussed about a 26.2 RFA mechanism. We discussed submission data for 26.1 RFAs. On January 15, again, we met in 2026, and we discussed about submission data for 26.2 RFA mechanism. And we discussed some potential of 27.1 RFA mechanism. So we also discussed some of the potential changes what we can make to address the existing need. As you know, from NIH, we are not hearing very good news. So how we can just cater over cancer researcher in Texas in a better way. So on April 23rd, very recently, we discussed some potential 27.2 RFA mechanism. And we also discussed about role of artificial intelligence, how we can use this in either submission and even reporting. So we provided several recommendations, especially for people who are writing grants and people who are reviewing grants, because nowadays it is very easy to just say, give a command to AI and just they can write the whole application for you. So we provided some recommendations, let's see, and I hope these are good recommendations. So next slide, please. So here, this is the data for this cycle. So as you can see here, our Individual Investigator Research Award, which is very popular award. And this time we had 332 submission. And out of that, we had funded 32 application out of it, which is about 10% funding rate. And in other IRAs, like in children's, we had 48 applications, 6 funding, so still 13%. And IRA for clinical trial, here we have a relatively high success rate. And if you see here in systems biology, we have 6% success rate here. We had 53 applications. And if you see here, this is, I was really surprised to see that IRA for early onset of cancer, we had 12 applications, but none was funded. So we need to look for why is that. And maybe we'll discuss with Dr. Hibbert what was the reason why none of the grant was funded in this mechanism. And for prevention and early detection, we had 39 applications and 3 funding. So again, in this prevention area, I think we need to work a little harder in order to find either good applications or we need to see what is happening here. So Core Facility Support Award, it was completely renewal. We got total 9 applications, 6 were funded. So, and Research Training Award, this was, I think, very good. Out of 8, 7 were funded, very high success rate. Multi-Investigator Award, 10, and 2 were funded. So overall, if you see here, our total aggregate, we got 675 applications, and overall success rate was about 15%, which is much higher than NIH right now.
Is NIH.
NIH is on RO1, I don't want to even say it's awful. So up to 2 to 4% is sure shot, but after that, it's case by cases. So that's a scenario for NIH. So this is recruitment. So we got established investigator, total 11 applications, 7 were funded. Again, pretty good success rate here. In Rising Star, it was very high, very good success rate. And these are really good mechanisms. Through these mechanisms, we can attract cancer scientists from across the nation, and we can attract them to Texas. And they bring a lot of wealth to the Cancer Society here in the Texas. So here we just work out some of the more metrics, like what is happening overall, like whether our follow-up funds are, how we are doing with that, and how our publications. So basically, we just want to look for success metrics here. And if you look for IRA, we have funded about 581 total awards, and total 543 million award was given. And if you look for follow-up funds, then we have almost like break even here in this case. Our publication rate is quite high, pretty good. And there are 37 clinical trial, and overall patient enrollment, if you see, it's 4,000. So if you look for every single category here, so they are doing pretty good. Some of them are really very good in terms of follow-up funds, which we look for definitely, and number of publication and patents filed. So total, yes, sir.
On the publication column, is that publication per total CPRIT time or publication per year or 2 years?
So this is total publications.
And when you look at publications, do you break it down by the quality of journals they were published in, or how many citations they had?
Yeah, that's a very good question. And I think for doing that, we again need to go into more deeper metrics. And sometime like when you are publishing paper, so obviously majority of our CPRIT scholar and these investigators, they don't compromise with the quality. So I will not say like they are publishing in a very low tier journal, but usually it's a very high publication quality coming from CPRIT scholars.
Thank you.
So if you see here in core facility, we have total funded 96 awards. And if you look here, the overall return on investment is about 1.7 billion. So in my opinion, this is a very successful mechanism, as you can see here, because our core facility mechanism, it provides opportunity for developing infrastructure. So I think we should keep continuing with that. This is really a very powerful mechanism. High impact, high risk award. Again, this is with very good success metrics. It is showing up really good. And there is a multi-investigator award, which is a very unique award where like one investigator cannot do anything, or when we just meet a group, then they can create a wonder. So that's the mechanism for multi-investigator award.
Just one question on that, on that slide, Dr. Choban, 22,000 clinical, patients enrolled. Is that an aggregate over time, or is that?
Yes, sir, it's aggregate over time.
Okay. How many years? Any idea?
So I think we are just calculating for all 17 years now.
I'm sorry.
17 years since CPRIT started.
And another question on that is that patients enrolled in Texas or patients enrolled total?
And that is what? Yeah, right.
Those are all Texas enrollees. Okay.
Yeah, because all investigators are here in Texas.
But
So,
it could be a multi-institutional study.
right, but CPRIT doesn't allow funds to follow in other states as per the policy. So here, this is our track. I'm just coming back. So track is a very recent award. We started maybe 4 or 5 years before. And total investment on this tech center of excellence is about 29 or 30 million. And if you see here, follow-up funds is already about 40 millions. So very good mechanism. And again, you can see follow-up funds are pretty good. Already 6 patents are filed and more than 108 publications are coming from this. So yes, again, this is a very powerful mechanism, and I'll appreciate CPRIT to put more money into this mechanism. As you can see, follow-up funds are pretty good. Track measure instrumentation, this is, I think we did one time. So again, this is a very new mechanism. So basically all track are very new mechanism, and as time goes by, we will see more follow-up funds in this side. So this is recruitment. So total we have recruited 71 scholars so far. And as you can see, number of publications from this is pretty good. And patient enrollment side is pretty high in. So all the recruitment awards or recruitment mechanism, what we are doing, I think they are showing very good success. And again, we should be keep doing this. So now I come because, as I mentioned, I come from Rio Grande Valley. So I just need to do some more, advocacy for track mechanism. So what is the impact? I just like to show some of the impact of CPRIT track, what has made in last 4, 5, I think we started this 4 years before. So this is very new mechanism, and I just want to show what is happening here. So if you look here in Rio Grande Valley, because I live in Rio Grande Valley, so I can just speak for it, but I'm sure in every track region, almost we have the same situation. So Rio Grande Valley, we have about 1.5 to 2 million residents here and about 5,000 square miles. And in addition to small and mid-tier towns, we have about 1,200 colonias. And colonias, if you have not seen, then you can see how they look like in the pictures. And we have basically, we are looking for some basic necessities, including drinking water, waste management system. So overall quality of life is highly compromised in this region. So challenges for track region are different as compared to challenges in Houston and any other major cities. And conducting research in that area is it's again a challenging, like our residents are facing challenges. So look some more into granularity. So if you look for annual incidence, we see about 6 to 9,000 cancer patients in Rio Grande Valley. And incidence remains pretty high. And if you look for incidence rate, it seems lower here compared to any other part of the Texas, but there could be a reason we are not even, whether we are having a problem in cancer diagnosis. So that's what I see, because overall burden is pretty high in Rio Grande Valley. If you look for cervical cancer screening rate in Rio Grande Valley is 40% as compared to 63 or 64% rest of the Texas. Similar problem we see in colorectal cancer screening. The overall screening rate is relatively low as compared to rest of the Texas. If you look here, a clinical trial. So clinical trial, obviously, all the infrastructure, at least I can speak for my area, we are just developing, and one of the grant I see, it was funded on rural clinical trial. So hopefully it will accelerate our processes. But as of now, our enrollment or representation of Hispanic population or in Rio Grande population is very, very low. And I was really surprised to see when I look for representation of Hispanic population in TCG database. This is a national database, what we have, where we have representation from different communities. As you can see here, like from a white population, we have representation in database at 77%. And we have 19% Hispanic population in the nation, and our representation in this database is less than 3%. So if you look here again, number-wise, like how many patients we have in this database. So Hispanic population representation is very, very less. It's about 3.1%. Reason because population is not being enrolled into the clinical trials. So more clinical trial we do in that region, maybe we'll have a better representation of our population in that database. So considering that at our center, which is TAC funded center, we started a RGV tumor genome project. So in that project, we are going to just do genomic analysis on our Hispanic patients over there. And we are very fortunate to have our partnership with DHR Hospital. From where we are getting all the samples, patient cancer tumor tissues, and those are ready to do a genomic analysis. So what it is going to do, it is going to basically provide the mapping of genetic landscape of RGV cancer patients. So this is going to provide us what kind of whole genome, if we do whole genome sequencing, then we are going to be able to find some of the variants, genomic variants, and some of the other things at a molecular level, what is happening due to regional exposure and then once we have that genomic data, then we will be able to compare with national TCGA database. So that we will be able to compare, like if in Caucasian population, this particular gene is high, what is happening to our population here in Hispanic population. So all this is going to provide really very unique data, and this will not happen without the support of CPRIT. So in order to genomic database, we will also be able to look for transcriptomic analysis and epigenetic level, what is happening. So all this is going to get, we are going to get all this data through that tumor genome project of RGV. So as far as economic impact of CPRIT investment in our Rio Grande Valley, we were very fortunate to have a $18.4 million NIH award to support our cancer center. So what other impact CPRIT mechanism is doing in our RGV communities? So we started a cervical cancer prevention action network. So that program is doing very well. So we are just going to colonias. We are trying to train our people. And we are also, since we are in medical school and we have other health related schools as well. So we are trying to develop a program through that we can just train our students for different cancer prevention strategies, and then they can just go to the community and they can just create a Wi-Fi effect, I will say, or you can say a donut effect. We are also training our high schoolers. We are trying to provide them exposure so that we can generate a next level pipeline for physicians and cancer scientists. We do a cancer conference every year in the region, and this year we just conducted our 4th one. So now this conference is getting a national recognition. With the help of all CPRIT funding, we established a seminar series, and through our seminar series, we are able to get speakers from across the nation, top-notch people from Texas and California, and just name a place. Although people usually don't like to come there because of the travel hassles, but still we have been very, very fortunate to get really top-notch people to our place. So these are some of the recommendations we provided to, again, for CPRIT. So keep investing money into core facilities, as this is one of the most popular mechanism, and it has provided really very good funding. And clinical trial focus RFAs, we need to just work more in clinical trial, especially in our track regions. So I also like to just give a recommendation to have a scholar recruitment RFAs for track eligible institution per se. So that way, because our challenges are different as compared to MD Anderson and UT Southwestern. We cannot recruit those top-notch scientists in Rio Grande Valley. So we have to just go step by step so that we can at least get some people over there. And RFA is really targeted for tech eligible institution. A small idea development grant that we just again provided some feedback on that. So that will also be very, very powerful. So in summary, I just again, I cannot thank your support enough. And on behalf of CPRIT and all our University Advisory Committee, we are so thankful to you and your valuable suggestions. Academic Research Committee through UAC express its really gratitude to CPRIT leadership. And considering current NIH funding situation, CPRIT is really in a unique position to provide important opportunities to take really stock priorities and recalibrate our existing program as well as new programs. So CPRIT has leveraged remarkable accomplishment in 17 years, and we hope to keep doing the same thing. So CPRIT funding is really changing the face in cancer, especially in low and mid-tier institutions through track mechanism. So again, we are really thankful to CPRIT for and encouraging this track mechanism. So thank you very much. That's all I have. And again, last year I promised you should visit our place. And again, this time I'd like to invite you all to come to Rio Grande Valley and visit our place and see what we have done. Thank you.
Thank you. Any questions for Dr. Sohan?
Cindy, I have.
Oh, yes, Mr. Taylor.
I should have asked this question as you were rolling through your slides, and I apologize. But you had one column called award funding, which I'm assuming that's CPRIT award funding, and the next column is follow-on funding. Can I be correct in saying that that's but for CPRIT's funding, the add-on funding wouldn't?
Yes, so follow-up funding, like when CPRIT is funding, and after that, we are getting money either from NIH,
From
DOD, and from
From third parties?
Yeah.
Okay. I mean, in some of those cases, more third parties was given money than our funding, which is great. Thank you.
Any additional questions? Thank you so much for your presentation. Thank you for traveling all the way from the Rio Grande Valley.
You're very welcome. Thank you very much.
One last item for consideration before moving to the next agenda topic. At yesterday's Oversight Committee retreat, we discussed some issues related to artificial intelligence and cancer. It was an informative discussion, but in my opinion, just scratched the surface of this important topic to cancer research. I propose that the Oversight Committee approve a new advisory committee for artificial intelligence. Members, is there a motion to approve the creation of the Artificial Intelligence Advisory Committee? All in favor, vote aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Motion carried. Mr. Taylor. Yes, I believe that's the procedure. Oh, his question, would you? ask a
Yesterday, the presenter said, or somebody asked, maybe it was Scott, said, can you give us some names to be on these committees? And they all said, sure, but we need to follow up on that.
Thank you. The chair now recognizes Mr. Ellis to discuss the proposed administrative rule changes.
Thank you, Madam Chair. This is the unfortunate situation for a lawyer where I can't say, hey, I don't make the rules. So we're seeking the Oversight Committee's permission today to publish some proposed changes in the Texas Register to Section 703.23 of CPRIT's administrative rules, which addresses disbursement of grant funds. This amendment comes about because as we fielded some questions and worked through some guidance issues with existing grantees, we discovered that the language of the rule itself doesn't seem ambiguous on its face, but when you apply it to special circumstances, it can be. Namely, the rule addresses that CPRIT will, as a measure to make sure compliance of all grant closeout obligations occurs, then we will hold back the last 10% of CPRIT grant funds from grantees that receive advanced funding. Historically, this has mostly come up in the case of the product development grant program the vast majority of grantees do receive advanced funding. But what those of us who don't work on the administration of the grants day to day didn't know is that sometimes that changes through the course of the grant. They might receive the first funding and advanced funding, and then they might transition to reimbursement. Or as the program has gone on, we're finding more and more situations, and some companies may not seek advanced funding. When we applied the text of the rule as it existed to those circumstances, it wasn't always clear to the grantees when we would need to hold back that funding. So we're proposing to amend the rule to just clarify our general practice that we will hold back that 10% in all product development grants, and that if that mechanism is necessary in any of the other grant programs, then we will withhold that 10% if we provide notice to the grantees. It isn't really that much of a change in the way CPRIT does business. It isn't a change in the expectations of most grantees, but it will help grantees going forward to be able to know very clearly what they can expect with regard to those holdbacks. So if the Oversight Committee approves publishing of the rule, we will publish that in the Texas Register, and we'll put it out there for public comment by the public, or any stakeholders can comment on it, and we'll be back to talk with you in August based on any changes we need to make based on that feedback, or if there aren't any changes that we need to make to move to actually adopt the rule and make it part of our administrative code.
Are there any questions for Mr. Ellis? Members, is there a motion to publish the proposed changes to Texas Administrative Code Chapter 703 in the Texas Register?
So moved.
All in favor vote aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Motion carries. Turning to agenda item 15, the chair recognizes Mr. Weaver to present the Chief Financial Officer's report.
Good morning, Oversight Committee members. Glad to be here with you this morning and appreciate the opportunity to present the CFO report. I am coming to you this morning with a little bit of a good news, bad news situation. So I'll start with the bad. We've got a lot to cover financially, so you'll have to listen to my drone a little bit more than usual in aggregate. But the good news is I will try to limit my remarks because I know we've got quite a bit more to cover as well. But obviously, if there's anything we need to drill down on more than I've done so, feel free to interrupt me or follow up with any questions you have. Starting up with the budget, there's not a whole lot happening. As a reminder, this is the update as of the second quarter of fiscal year 2026. So that'd be the quarter ending February 28th. As you might expect, in our indirect administrative budget category, we've expended or obligated about half the money. That's a budget strategy that largely funds our indirect admin salaries. So again, as you might expect, about halfway through the year, we've reserved about half of that money. In the direct administrative strategy, where most of our major service contracts are, and the grant management platform replacement money, we've obligated a significantly higher portion of that money. And again, it's largely attributable to those big service contracts in the grant management system. Moving on to revenue, we had a relatively good quarter of about $360,000 in total collections. As is, you might expect, the majority of that was attributable to Wellereg. Continuing theme of my updates to you, it was another large increase over the same period for the prior year. So during the second quarter of fiscal year 2026, we received the royalty payment for the fourth quarter 2020 calendar year 2025. And that represented a 37% increase over the fourth quarter from 2024. And when you look further into the numbers, it echoes kind of what we've been talking about in the last few updates, that they're continuing to introduce the drug in new markets, and even those markets where it has been sold for 1 or 2 periods, we're seeing those nascent markets mature and seeing a lot more royalties generated there. In
in the fourth quarter, for the first time, there were sales in Eastern Europe and Estonia, and Croatia. Some of those nascent markets that are maturing are Japan, which had a full fourfold increase from the prior quarter, and Singapore, which showed a tenfold increase from the prior quarter. So good news there. And then the home market, the US, where the majority of our royalties are generated, continues to see growth as well. So it was another positive update on our royalties. Inception to date, the agency's collected just over $12 million. But in terms of trends, roughly 60% of that money has been collected just in about the last 4 years or so. So the arrow is moving in a positive direction. Moving on to our performance measures. Again, echoing conversations we've had before, our number served in prevention services measure had a great quarter, even though we're updating you on the second quarter of fiscal year 2026. The program has already achieved 74% of their target goal for the entire year. And that's in light of that goal increasing from 750,000 to 775,000 people served from 2025 to 2026. And so as a reminder, 2 meetings ago, I think a question had come up in terms of what our high water mark was, and that was before COVID, and we've slowly been ramping up in the years since COVID. 2025 was the best year on record for the number served in prevention services, and we're trending in 2026 to exceed that as well. So good news there. We had no company relocations thus far, but again, it's only the second quarter. We're only at halftime of the ball game. So maybe unlike a Vanderbilt football game, I'm looking forward to continuing to play in the second half and hopefully seeing some numbers come in there.
I know. Wow.
And finally, moving on to the bonds, we had our second tranche issuance in early December of about 72.6 million. We're on track for total issuance in 2026 of about $298 million. And so that concludes my CFO report, but happy to answer any questions y'all might have.
Are there any questions, comments?
If Margot asks about Vanderbilt football, I'm leaving.
Okay, please continue to agenda item 16. Mr. Weaver will explain the fiscal year 2027 bond issuance resolution.
Yes, so moving on to the materials behind tab 12 in your book, I'm, as mentioned, presenting the 2027 bond resolution. For those of y'all that have been around for a while, there are no material changes from prior years. It's just a request to officially submit the request for financing to TPFA later this summer. As you might recall, last year, we made one substantive change to the resolution, and that was to provide explicit authority for our deputy CEO and chief operating officer to act in the absence of our CEO. So we've carried that provision forward into this year's draft resolution. We are requesting authorization to issue up to $300 million in bonds in 2027. Of that amount, we'd anticipate actually utilizing about $298.7 million based on our forecasted expenditures of grant awards from 2022 to present, and then what will be our current administrative expenses next year in fiscal year 2027. As you proceed through your packet, you'll see on page 12.2 to 12.3, the resolution itself. On 12.4 and 12.5 is a detailed program description for reference. The 2027 expenditure schedule is there on 12.6. And then finally, there's a full issuance history from the agency's inception presented for you there on 12.7. And that shows, again, how we've issued the full 3.6 billion to date that we have issued over time. So with that, the next steps would be to request the motion to approve that. We'll take that to TPFA and then we'll work with the bond review board from there and then hopefully be all set on September 1st to get moving in 2027.
Mr. Margot?
Has the state given you any indications on what to expect on the interest rates?
I have, we have not received, to make sure I understand your question, is it what is the prevailing interest rate of our bond? Typically, the underwriters will pass along a transcript to TPFA and they will share that with us whenever they issue commercial paper or bonds. They did not do that in December, but we have another issuance coming up early next month and I'll make sure to follow up with them to get that. Typically, prevailing rates for short-term commercial paper have been about 4.25%. Everything going on in the world right now, kind of odd, but perhaps it's the flight to quality. Those rates have ticked down a little bit. So I can follow up with you for something more precise, but that's what we've been seeing.
I was just curious as to what, if they made any projection given this environment we're dealing with. So that was just, it was curiosity.
Dr. Hernandez?
What was the rate the last time we issued that? What interest did you get?
It was about 4.25, but I
Really?
can give you that exact number.
I'm surprised because we have a great credit rating. I mean, we can pay our bill, and I've seen other counties and cities issue debt bonds, and they're getting what you're getting, and you're much stronger.
They are probably issuing tax exempt debt, and our debt is issued on a taxable basis, usually for compliance purposes or
Yes, sir.
other reasons. Sometimes they'll, even though it's costlier, the costs of compliance are less when it's taxable debt. And so that's probably the primary differential you're seeing.
Okay.
Any additional questions? Is there a motion to approve the fiscal year 2027 bond issuance resolution requesting financing for $300 million in bond proceeds by the Texas Public Finance Authority in fiscal year 2027?
So moved.
All in favor, vote aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Motion carries. Moving on to the next agenda item, Mr. Weaver, please explain CPRIT's legislative appropriations request for the 2028-2029 biennium.
Sure. So again, for members that have been with us for a while, every 2 years, we present to you our draft legislative appropriations request. And because of the cadence of the biennial budget cycle and our cadence of oversight committee meetings, we have our May meeting and then our August meeting, and usually the detailed instructions from the legislature and the governor as far as preparing that budget request don't come until that intervening period between this meeting and the one we'll have later this summer. And so what you're looking at is our draft LAR. On April 30th, we submitted our base budget reconciliation to the Legislative Budget Board and the governor's office. It's currently under review. Hopefully we'll see that approved anytime, any day now. And once that happens, we'll get the instructions shortly thereafter and be able to fully develop our budget requests. And at that point, typically we would schedule a special audit subcommittee meeting later in the summer to provide you all or those members that opportunity for the detailed review of our draft LAR. But as you'll see, the draft budget for 28-29 looks fairly similar to what you're used to seeing. We've got an overall funding source of about $300 million. Primarily, almost all of it is bond funding with a little bit of license plate revenue, product development application review fees, conference revenues, et cetera, also mixed in there. But that budget should provide program funding for academic research, prevention, product development, roughly the same as it has been for 26 and 27, albeit with, we plan on asking for 2 exceptional budget items that are detailed in your meeting materials. And those would be to adjust these authorized salary levels of our 2 exempt positions, and then also to increase our full-time equivalent allowance from the current 54 FTEs that we have now to 56 in 28 and 29. One of those would help bolster our cybersecurity, information security capabilities, and the other would provide accounting operational support for the agency. So I'll leave it there, but again, happy to get into the details further if any of y'all have questions.
Any questions? Do I have a motion to approve CPRIT's legislative appropriations request for the 2028-2029 biennium?
So moved.
Second.
All in favor, vote aye. Any opposed? Motion carries. Thank you very much.
Thank you.
The chair recognizes Deputy Executive and Chief Operating Officer Heidi McConnell to present the proposed contract extension with General Dynamics Information Technology, Inc.
Good morning, Oversight Committee members. So my memo is behind tab 14, and this is an extension for our GDIT contract. The original contract contemplated the initial contract, which was issued in fiscal year 2022 with 4 contract extensions. Because of the development work on the new grant management platform that the state will own, that we are proposing to extend the contract with GDIT to continue use of their GMP for part of the year in FY 2027, and also continue the administrative support that they provide to all of our grant programs. As explained in the memo, the total amount of that extension is $6.3 million. About $900,000 of that is a subscription for the GDIT grant management platform. That is a partial year. The current subscription for this full fiscal year is $1.5 million. It also includes, that amount includes the payment of honoraria to all of the peer reviewers, peer review panels for prevention and for academic research, because GDIT will continue to support that in cycle 27.1, which the RFAs are out right now, and we're receiving applications, and all of those meetings will occur in the fall. The one thing I want to point out is when we have our new grant management platform, we will take over issuing all of those payments for honoraria. So right now, those are direct costs through the contract, and then there's a little bit of administrative uplift for the GDIT staff that work on that. But we will be doing that. So that's actually one of the reasons for the additional FTE in accounting, because we will be processing a whole lot of honoraria payments. Now, some of that, kind of the approval of all of that will be automated within the new grant management platform, but we still have to make sure the payments are made. Currently, we only make direct payments by our staff to the review council members, so all of the chairs of the review panels. Going back to your question, Dr. Rosenfeld, about the GMP, so that we currently use with GDIT, and I'm going to step back in time because this goes back to the early days of CPRIT and getting CPRIT off the ground. So going back to actually the spring, summer of 2009, so this is fiscal year 2009, at that point, CPRIT existed, but it did not have an appropriation of the bond funds. We were operating on the predecessor agencies, the Texas Cancer Council's general revenue funds that they had. In fact, in the 2009 session, we actually had a supplemental appropriation of some additional general revenue so that we could actually issue the contract, the initial contract with SRA International, which was the original predecessor company prior to GDIT that we contracted with. And we contracted with them in June of 2009. We issued our first RFAs, I think, in August of 2009. We made our very, very first award, but it was a recruitment award that didn't actually go through the platform at that time in November 2009. And then we made the first cycle of academic research awards in March of 2009. So that was a very quick time frame to go from contract. And meanwhile, staff were getting hired. Kristen and I were some of the first staff to get hired. I was hired in the beginning of June 2009. She was hired in July 2009. Our chief scientific officer, Al Gilman, was hired mid-June of 2009. He put together all of the, peer review members, the research council that was in existence then, and came up with all of the RFAs in that very short time frame. So when we contracted with SRA at that time, they had the application receipt system and they had the peer review system. And those were contracted. They had a lot of contracts with federal agencies that made grant awards. In particular, one that was kind of similar was the congressionally directed medical research program that's funded through DoD. And at the time, I mean, they fund many different diseases, but they do fund cancer. In 2009, I think CDMRP was actually awarding like $16 million in total. So we were the first really big program to use their platforms. I will say, and then we built the post-award grant management platform. We started building it in the fall of 2011 when we started actually having grants, awards, and those grants needed to be run through the system. So, and manage that. It was a very interesting time period, but that's a little bit of background in the history of how we got
paper contracts.
how we got to having the contract that we have now with GDIT and the grant management platform that we have. And it is 3 disparate systems. So, there's application receipt, there's, as I said, the peer review system, and then the post-award. And we even had to build what we call the bridge, because the grant applications that came in through the application receipt, they didn't really sit anywhere. So we had to create a bridge where we could have those applications reside, so we could, have all of the information related to that, have all of the peer reviewer statements and everything related to all the grants that went through review. And then that would connect to our post-award grant management platform that we're using now. So, and that's in a nutshell what we use.
I will add this. So, you guys have experienced CPRIT for many, many years. And so, we are a very small, lean agency and truly always operated. If one smart person is on a big item, then the next smart person needs to find something else. We don't have enough staff to, double and triple up. So I thank my lucky stars that I was hired in July. You heard Heidi say that grant management contract was signed in June. So Heidi has been the point person on the grant management contract for more than a decade. And I think if it would have been me, I don't know that I'd still be at CPRIT. So, that is a testament to how much work it is. You heard her say in a nutshell, I mean, this is a whole planet in terms of the work that has gone into creating not only this grant management platform, but now the transition. And you'll hear more about that from Soma, but I do want to say that.
Mr. Taylor.
Heidi, when we implement our new system in January, I guess it is, hopefully, what's going to happen to the general dynamic information contract?
So we are going
to go away?
Well, it will change. I mean, even writing the requirements, the scope of work for this transition, for this extension, took a lot of work because we are juggling releases, actually and someone will go more into this, but this summer of the application receipt for 27.2 cycle, which means, that part of the application receipt comes offline from our use of the GDIT program this summer. We will not use it anymore. Well, actually, I take that back, except for recruitment grants through their cycle 27.3. But that's a more limited subset of the, applications that we receive. And we will still need the support, some of the staff support that GDIT currently provides. And that's really more on kind of the administrative review of all the applications that come in. We will try to use AI there, but we still need humans to make sure that those AI reviews are done correctly. And as well as all of the support for the peer review panels, because GDIT staff takes on assigning the applications to panel members and, making sure the conflict of interest is, filled out, and or if they're filled out, then, they have to potentially reassign or move applications. So they do all of that to help support what our small staff in academic research, prevention, and product development have to do. They also support all of the peer review meetings. So they, they manage all of those meetings for us, which is actually helpful because it does, put a buffer between our staff and the reviewers in terms of, addressing and making sure that we aren't influencing the reviewers' decisions and recommendations to us. So yes, we will continue to have those services. Who that will be, GDIT will certainly, I'm sure, bid, but there may be other potential companies out there that offer similar services.
Do you have,
Mr.
do
Montgomery.
you have any idea how much money we'll save with the implementation of the new grant management program?
All I can say is it won't be 6.3 million. I really, it will be a
It's okay. I'm just curious if you do.
Yeah,
You
there
don't.
are certain things even now that GDIT has to do manually to make all of the application receipt and peer review reports and everything work that won't have to happen with our new GMP. So it's kind of hard to say what is like actually taken away until we receive bids.
But it will certainly save us money.
Yes.
Yeah.
Heidi?
Yeah.
I probably have this wrong, so correct me. But was the primary impetus to move from GDIT to an internal system? What was that based on, security requirements or money saving requirements?
It was based on basically based on money saving, because for us to enhance the system every time we needed to make a change, no matter how small, GDIT actually had to program it for us. So we have meetings every other week. We go through like, what do we need? What are the requirements? They have to write out the requirements. We have to agree to them. Then they have to develop it in the system. Then we have to do user acceptance testing. It was very, very expensive. That was, I would say, like, obviously the 6.3 million doesn't contain that. Even the 2.8.2 million that we have in contract right now didn't really include enhancements per se, because we stopped them. But it was very expensive to do that and very time consuming. And even with that, we didn't have all the automation that we really wanted to. So this will truly automate many things and even give a lot of transparency to some of the processes that we have for both our internal staff and for the grantees. The grantees do not have any reporting capabilities within the current grant management platform. So that wasn't built into that platform for them. So they can look at their grants individually, but they can't really pull out full reports.
Any additional questions? Is there a motion to approve the contract extension with General Dynamics Information Technology, Inc. for 1 year in an amount not to exceed $6,307,163?
Second.
All in favor, vote aye. Any opposed? Motion carries.
Thank you.
Thank you, Ms. McConnell. The chair recognizes Chief Information Security and Data Officer, Mr. Soma Menike, to provide an update on CPRIT's Grant Management Platform Modernization Project. We can't wait.
Glad to hear it. Good morning. So before I give my update, I would like to answer a few other questions. You asked about commercialization. Whatever we build in Texas by a Texas state agency is owned by the state of Texas. CPRIT doesn't directly own it. And so what we've done in the building of the grant management platform, we've actually pulled in assets from other agencies that share the same platform, which actually saves CPRIT money. And so when DPRIT comes online, they can share the same assets that we have at no cost. They would have to pay the license fee and the cost to bring it online, whatever that is with DIR. So it actually saves money in a huge way because, again, the state cannot be double charged for something that it already owns. So commercial, no. Owned by the state, yes. So going to AI, it is a closed loop. One of the things that we looked at in the whole efficiency is to ensure that we identify, working directly with the teams, to identify where AI can integrate into the process. It will not make decisions, but it will, at a degree of confidence, make recommendations. And so in that loop, the benefit that we see is that CPRIT owns the data. And as such, we're able to train AI over and over again, refine it so that we can get it to a higher degree of confidence. We've shown the team what it can do. There are various opportunities. We continue to meet with the teams internally and with DIR to understand what the capabilities are, what the refinements are. So there is a lot going into this, and I definitely are confident that by the time we go into release 2, which I will explain at a later time, release 2 should have a version of AI that we can pull into production. As far as cost savings, again, going back to the efficiency, we should see a lot of the cost that we offload to a third party be brought in-house. And again, that's going to be over time as we identify those opportunities with the compliance team, the grant team, the programs team. There should be a huge improvement in that. All right. Starting with my update. So we planned to go live in December of 2026. However, we identified that 27.2 will go live, or the 27.2 RFA will be released or announced sometime around August. And so if the applications are brought online in the old system in September, we may have a data migration issue because those applications are in flight. And so we did a little bit of planning with the Department of Information Resources, DIR, and the Deloitte team, and we identified that it's best for us to preserve the integrity of the data if we collected the applications in the new system. And as such, we broke down the release. We're calling it Release 1 and Release 2. Release 1 brings the application intake online early, where we can announce the 27.2, begin collecting applications, and we don't tamper with the data, which preserves the integrity. But we can continue 27.1 in the current system. And once that application is done and awarded, we can move the data back into the new GMP. Our target for release 2, like I said, is December 2026, early January 2027, with the goal that the current system with GDIT goes offline January 31, 2027. So we do have a hard date on that. The big goal here for us is to understand what CPRIT has wished we had in the current system and implement that in the new system. So it is very collaborative. Kristen mentioned hundreds of hours. I would say it's more than that.
Yeah.
Significantly more than that. And the entire team is very collaborative on what they want. It's an opportunity that we align the wish list, we prioritize, we work with the DIR team to figure out what exactly is it that we want. Now, there are some items that we've identified that we may not be able to achieve this go round, but we're planning ahead, right? We're planning ahead after go live. Some of the nuances that we may want to see, we're identifying those as well. So the collaboration with DIR makes it very efficient and easier to work with. A lot of the changes that are on the table today, like Heidi said, goes back to this whole planning and working with a third party. The goal is to bring that in-house, where the team or the program teams are, and empower the program teams to be able to make those changes themselves within their programs without having to consult a third party. And also the big thing about it, the biggest win in this is our data would be in one place where we can create reports specific to the OC members, create reports internally, create reports for the peer reviewers and to the grantees. So we're looking at this as a one true system where all our data is housed and we can run as many reports integrated to any other system that, you know, we want to report out to, but not as a dependency for our grant process. And so again, we continue to work on that with minor tweaks, working with the Ruth and team and getting the communication plan out, what the communication strategy is, because we have to communicate to the grantees that there is a change coming and what the plan is, and also training. We're coming up with training materials, recorded webinars, so job aids, things that we can post on the site to help them to navigate the system. We understand that change sometimes will be hard, but we're doing our very best to make it easy on our grantees. And so there's a lot of changes to come with this, but all for the best. Happy to answer any questions.
This may be for Kristen, I'm not sure, but assuming that the grantees have some problems, then it follows that their reports may be delayed because they're confused about the system. They can't figure out this, they can't figure out that, but it's Christmas, whatever. We can waive their compliance, correct?
Yes, we have many kind
Vince
of,
is saying no.
what?
Vince stood up and shook his head no.
We have, you know, I will use the non-legal term, but we have kind of backdoors built into our requirements that allow us to recognize situations. I'm sorry.
Yeah, flexibility.
Flexibility, right? That's the legal term that we use, right, John? Hopefully it won't be necessary.
Right.
You know, we will do a lot of planning, and so much of this is to make a much more intuitive system, both for us and for the grantees. So it'll be a new system. Nobody likes change, but hopefully that change will be better.
Is there any flexibility on OC member compliance?
You all are explaining this to all the grantees as forthcoming, because I've never been to a data systems change that wasn't a nightmare.
Absolutely. We are
And,
putting together.
there are-
Thank you for that vote
things
of
have
confidence.
changed, things have changed, but everyone in my own former firm, it was always more complicated and more problems than were ever assessed. But if we explain that to the grantees and everybody understands, we're going to be going through this change. So, you know, grab your ankles.
We definitely put that in our communication plan. I will say, as part of user acceptance testing, we will be opening it up to some of or we will offer the grantees to be part of the testing with the goal to get the feedback from them. Now, I hope that we get a lot of responses, but we will definitely be making that offer.
Dr. Rosenfeld?
How long do you think it will take to recoup your development costs by savings from GDIT?
I would have to get back to you on that one. I don't have the numbers in front of me, but that's worth us looking into.
Thank you.
Mr. Taylor?
You did get input from our grantees in setting up your program, so you know what they're thinking already. But you mentioned earlier when the rollout of the new system comes up, you mentioned a licensing fee would be paid.
Yeah.
To whom does that licensing fee?
So the
Seems-
underlying platform is Salesforce, and Salesforce, it's licensed to the institution that is using the platform. So
Gotcha.
yes. So if, say, CPRIT were to use Salesforce, they would need to buy their own license. And that is to allow them to use the platform. But the coding and the processes and everything else behind that, which is what we're doing now, is owned by Texas.
Okay.
Yes. But it's through a DIR contract. Oh, yes, yes. Oh, nothing new to us. So I will say the team we're working with right now, built the grant management platform for HHS and Public Utilities Commission on the same platform. So there's a lot of state agencies also using that platform, including DIR.
Any other questions? Okay, thank you so much.
Thank you.
Moving on to agenda item 20, the chair recognizes Ms. McConnell to give an update on the 2026 CPRIT conference.
So members, you have my memo and update behind tab 15. And I'm pleased to report that since I wrote this memo last week with 60 registration, a little bit more than 60 registrations, as of this morning, we have 87 registrations. So we are climbing, and I attribute that to our communications team releasing some listserv messages and social media messages last week, reminding people to register for the conference, especially in light of the registration fee increase mid-June that occurs June 13th. So I think that drove registrations and hopefully will drive more. We do have 2 conference sponsors secured to date, HDI Clinical, which is a company based in Houston, and Exact Sciences. We also have 5 exhibitors, American Cancer Society, Cancer Action Network, the Greater Houston Partnership, H2 Ocean, Biological US, and Southwest Research Institute. So we are, if you know of any companies who want to sponsor or exhibit at the conference, please let them know. That information is available on the conference website, so they can find it very easily. All the program staff are busily securing speakers. We have most of our conference schedule fleshed out at this point, and we're confirming those speakers. And we will be releasing the full agenda in June. That's the plan too, in mid-June. As far as abstract submissions, the portal opened on April 13th. And it will close July 24th. We will accept up to 400 abstracts for the poster sessions that will occur. We have 2 poster sessions in the conference this time, as we have had in the past. So I know those are popular events for all of our grantees. We will be having the Texans Conquer Cancer Awards Dinner on Monday, October 5th, and the representatives of our advisory committees have reviewed those nomination submissions, and there's actually a meeting tomorrow, or I think next week, of the group to kind of synthesize the recommendations that will come forward to Kristen and Ms. Barbario Payne for finalization. So we anticipate making 4 awards to our grantees at that dinner. Are there any questions?
Thank you very much. The chair recognizes Mr. Graves from Weaver and Tidwell to present the internal auditor report.
Good morning. I have a brief update for you with the status of our internal audit plan. We had 3 audits, as you see on page 16.1 of your materials. We have 3 audits this year. The one that is the most recent that you will see today is the critical asset inventory and vulnerability assessment, part of our information security objectives. And so that one is the prime candidate for discussion today, but that will be discussed with you in closed session because of the information security implications of it. And so we'll cover that more in closed session. We are currently underway with our intellectual property compliance, which is part of our post-award grant monitoring segments. So this is really focusing on that intellectual property and the revenue associated with that. This should be coming back to CPRIT. So this is a new area. We've covered this very lightly in years past, but now there's so much more intellectual property that has been developed over the years. So this is fairly new for everyone, and we're working through that one currently. We've previously reported to you the SAO efficiency audit results. The other thing that we have going on right now is the follow-ups over the 3 internal audits that we have from last year. So that is our post-award grant monitoring audit from last year. We're also performing some light follow-ups over our advisory from last year, which was over the P-card rebate program, and then follow-ups over non-grant expenditures. And those are also underway. So we anticipate having those wrapped up in the next few weeks, probably by mid-June. The intellectual property will probably be closer to the end of June, but we'll have everything ready for you, including a draft of our annual report at our next OC meeting. So the internal audit plan's moving along very, very rapidly, and we are on pace to finish before the end of the fiscal year. We'll also have for you at the next OC meeting the proposed plan for fiscal 2027. That's all I have for this session for you. If there's any questions.
Mr. Montgomery?
What is the overlap between the efficiency audits and the audits that you all do?
Which efficiency audit? The state's efficiency
State
audit?
efficiency, sorry.
There is some brief overlap in those. That state efficiency audit has a very specific focus under Section 327. So we do look for efficiency in our processes, and there's been a lot that we were able to leverage from our historical perspective when we did our pre-assessment. So things like the post-award grant monitoring last year had a very high focus on efficiency. So the recommendations that we're following up on are primarily efficiency related. The same with our non-grant expenditures. There are some things with compliance and accuracy, but since we've gone through those in the past, in the past 10 years, we've already covered a lot of the compliance and accuracy pieces. So we're able to now be looking at a lot of efficiency. So a lot of what we've done here in the recent 2-3 years has had a lot of efficiency recommendations built into it. So that's the overlap. They have some other focuses that they're looking at according to the statute. But as far as the individual processes and how CPRIT executes its work, we've been able to do that, and that's really where their focus now is things like space usage, which we really haven't covered before, usage of IT personnel. Some of those we have covered, at least in bits and pieces over the last years as we've conducted our audits. So that kind of gives you a little bit of a picture of how they overlap. They're not specifically directly related, but they do have some correlation.
Has your work saved time? I guess maybe for Kristen, I don't know. Has your work saved time in the efficiency audits? Different way of saying what's the overlap?
Has our work been able to save
Time in
staff.
the agencies, has it been able to save time by the staff in responding to the state efficiency audit?
From my understanding, of course, I'm not directly involved in those,
Right.
but from my understanding, the SAO's audit is pretty deep. So there may be, that might be a better question for Ms. Doyle to answer rather than me, but.
It's okay. I've kind of figured out the answer.
I think they were overall prepared to answer some questions. I think there's some questions that have been asked and some documents that have been asked for that we did not ask for. So there has been some time spent on those.
Any other questions? Thank you, Mr. Graves. The Oversight Committee will not take up standing agenda items 23 and 24. Looping back to agenda items 8, 10, 21, 22, and 25, we will move into closed session. For the members of the public watching this meeting, other than the vote that the board will take regarding the internal audit report, I do not expect to act on other matters after returning from closed session and before adjourning the meeting. We move into a closed session pursuant to Texas Government Code 551.076 to discuss the internal audit program report over critical asset inventory and vulnerability assessment security objectives. The Oversight Committee will also take up agenda items 8, 10, 22, and 25 while in closed session to seek advice from counsel pursuant to Texas Open Meetings Act 551.071. I ask Ms. Doyle, Mr. Ameneke, Ms. Cusack, Mr. Jacob Parker, Mr. Burgess, Mr. Nance, Mr. Ellis, and Dr. Smith to join the Oversight Committee in the closed session. The time is now 11:31. Okay, the board now reconvenes in open session. The time is 12:40 p.m. I will note that Ms. McConnell was also asked to join the Oversight Committee in the closed session. Closing out our work for this meeting, members, is there a motion to approve the internal audit program report over critical asset inventory and vulnerability assessment security objectives? All in favor, vote aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Motion carries. Turning to agenda item 26, CPRIT will hold the next Oversight Committee meeting on August 19th. If there is no further business and there is no objection, the chair moves to adjourn this meeting. Is there a second? Second. All in favor?
Aye.
Motion carries. This meeting stands adjourned at 12:40 p.m.